We're live.
We're live.
There's no delay on this program, so I'm used to like hitting
Okay.
it and then there being like a 3 second
Yeah,
delay. But
I
now
know
it's
that's what started this whole trend.
yeah, it's immediate. Yeah, I had to let you know.
Yeah, I remember the very first time it was like,
Yeah.
and then you're like, we're live.
Also,
Oh my
we're
gosh, this is
never live.
amazing.
Actually,
Well,
just
I mean, it's
recording.
true, but like in our heart, right? Like
Yeah,
in
we're
heart,
live in our
here we're
hearts.
live. Yeah. So well, hopefully the volume's coming through well. But this is exciting. We're finally back. So apologies to all those who are joining us that we didn't get this out as soon as we would like. That was on me. We were kind of dealing with some stuff here at home, just making sure that everything was peaceful, and everybody was doing well. So appreciate the patience. But we're finally able to get together to talk about this pretty amazing section of the book. And I don't know how this conversation is going to go because it was like I don't know about you, Matt, but like it felt like there was so much, and then I went back to read the chapter summaries today, and I was like, no, like more happened than this. But like I read through the chapter summaries like so fast. I was like, no, if I mean it was like a lifetime just in
Yeah,
this one part.
it's
Oh
truly
man, so
like
I
where every sentence has weight, and I'm
yeah.
just like, it's crazy. Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot happens here.
So this is gonna be awesome, but I don't know how long this is gonna go. We're gonna roll with it, and we're gonna see. But as always, we are gonna be doing our review for part three of Memories of Ice, part three Capustan. But yeah, so if you're new to this is Hobby Vomits. My name is Ian. This
I'm
is
at hello,
hello, and I guess
hello.
actually you're probably not above me, right? You're like to the side of me or something.
Yeah, I think we switched sides. I can't remember, but I think I used to be to the right of you, but now I'm
Mm,
to the left.
okay,
Yeah.
and so we are
Superior
doing
goes,
our
superior reading order.
exactly,
So
exactly.
it had to happen.
So we're doing our spoiler packed review of part three. But as always, if you have not seen this before and you are reading through Memories of Ice, that is awesome. It has been so great that we have people who are veterans to this, but also people who are new coming and joining for these video reviews. We never know how long they're going to take, but if you've not watched part one or part two, you should definitely go back and watch part one and part two, and then come and join us for this one. We have not read part four, so we cannot spoil anything beyond part three of this book. We have not read it yet. We will be reading that after we finish this recording. And then, generally speaking, after we do our fourth part, then we'll do a final, just overall book review and how does it fit into the whole series, and then we'll take a short break and move on to the next book, which is pretty exciting.
Nice. Sorry, I was just
Hmm.
closing down some of my other
Oh yeah.
programs just to make sure. I forgot to do that before we started, but I think I am all good now.
Yeah, and I think
Smooth
though with the
sailing.
current schedule, we should pretty much have all of our stuff done for Memories of Ice Part Four and the final book review. I think probably before December. So then we might be able
Oh yeah,
to, yeah.
I
I
hope
think it
so.
should be before December. So yeah, but then that means we can actually, which would be kind of fun. That could be like a little Christmas special. We can be starting the next book, and
Yeah.
that could be pretty cool. So I'm getting very very excited. So I know I'm getting ahead of myself though. We haven't even finished this one, but yeah. Okay, so just a couple of quick things. We'll do a quick little overview of the previous part that we just read, and then we'll kind of do a high level overview of this part, and then we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. Usually talk about characters, plot, and then our predictions, which are usually pretty much all wrong. I wish I had plot predictions like they were layups, although I'm terrible at layups anyway, so I guess it's about the same. And yeah.
Yeah, I was looking through. I don't think we didn't have any or we didn't write any down last time. So I just copy and pasted our predictions from
Mm.
part one, and we'll look at those. So I didn't feel like
Yeah.
going back and watching the other video. So I don't
I
remember
remember
exactly what we made. Yeah, if you do,
I
you can
remember
chime
some of
in.
my predictions, and I think only my safest prediction actually went through. So,
Okay.
which is that the Capustan doesn't make it, right? That was like my safest
Sure.
prediction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. All right. So yeah, let's
So
talk
yeah,
about previous part, which was
Mhm.
Hearthstone. So
Hearthstone. That's right.
again, I'm just gonna read my notes that we had for the high level review last time. So the Panyan Domain closed in on Capustan. We learned more about the histories of the Barghast, the Talani Mas, and the Jaggets. The plan to unite the Barghast clans in order to reinforce Capustan is undertaken. There was a big duel we started to surround the Panion Domain, and then the greater war waged by the crippled god continued to flourish. So that happened in book 2, or part 2.
Yep.
Just so
And then
everyone's caught up. What's up?
And then I know you talked about the Barghast, and so this is something I don't know that we got into with our last review with the previous part, but the part of the learning about the Barghast was also learning about the Barghast gods, because they kind of keep coming up in part 3.
Yeah, they're like
And so,
elder, or I guess technically they're not their elder gods, but they're
yeah,
very old gods.
old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but this like sort of like discovery of gods is a really interesting theme, and we'll talk about it more as we get into part 3. But that was kind of a theme that sort of started in part 2, was this sort of like rediscovery of older gods, which I thought, which now looking back is like very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was just a cool way to get the Barghast there, because there really was like, we knew there was a plan in place, but it's like, well, how are we gonna get this whole like race of people to commit to fighting like almost a guaranteed lost battle? So yeah, it was really cool. But all right, so high level overview of book 3, Capustan. There is the battle / siege of Capustan. A new god of war ascends. Quick Ben gets a higher calling. The second gathering happens. A meeting of all new parties involved get together to make a plan against the Panion Seer and Coral. There's the emergence of Tog and Fanderay. And then House of Chains. We don't know which way it's going to go, but there is the introduction of like Perron kind of doesn't actually on paper make his choice, but I feel like we kind of know where that's going to go. So yeah, a lot of stuff. That's like I said, high level overview. Lots of stuff happens, especially within like the siege of Capustan.
Yeah,
a lot happens in there. But yeah, let's check out. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
That's what I was saying. I was like, when we were prepping for this, I messaged you. I was like, it felt like it was 2 parts in one, because you get to this point like around chapter 18, I think, and then you're like, wait, hold on, like we still have like 2 more chapters. Like, what's going on?
Steven Erickson's like,
Yeah.
damn it,
Yeah.
that can only be 4 parts.
Yeah,
I committed. So yeah, I think it does feel like this could have been like a part 3 and part 4, and then there just be a part 5. But I mean, it was great.
It was great.
Yeah. So looking at our written down previous predictions, Tattersail not going to stay at the forefront of Silver Fox. Got it right. I mean, maybe that was an easy one, but Whiskey Jack dies. We got that right. Wait, you didn't read that part when he died at that?
Was that in the is that in the director's cut?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, didn't get that right yet. Prawn accepts his place as like the master of the deck.
I feel like that's mostly becoming true.
Yeah, it's mostly becoming true.
Yep.
And then Buke makes a big sacrifice. Wrong. I was like, I'm way off on Buke. The setup for Buke, I was like, hell yeah, I love Buke. Buke's gonna be awesome. And then Buke's just like, I'm a bird, and I'm barely in the book anymore. So yeah, those were the ones we wrote down from part 1. And you were saying part 2, you predicted Capustan was not going to make it.
Yeah, I had a prediction Capustan was not going to make it. And then one of the things I've been kind of looking at was Silver Fox and Perron, like there being some degree of ascendancy there. And now it's really feeling like that's not how this is going to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, we can jump into it. Kind of, we chatted about it a little bit in part 1 and 2, but this book is a little bit harder for these discussions, just in the sense of, with like Deadhouse Gates, there were very like separated storylines going on, and so we could really focus in on one and go through everything that happened in this part, then jump to another timeline. Where here, it's so hard to do that. It almost just feels like we just got to go in order of what we remember and can think of. rather than focusing on like a character's line. But maybe, um, like I think there could, I think there is an argument to be made that we could focus, like, let's focus on Kovian, right, and go through his whole thing. But so much of that stems off
Yep.
of like what happens with Grunto and what happens with,
Yep.
the the priests, the mass council, and
Mhm.
all that stuff.
Yeah, I've seen this a lot, and I was telling you, I sat down with Asana and I was gonna make some notes, and I was just like, I don't even know like where to put the chisel here.
Yeah,
So, but here was I was thinking about this more, and so here's my thought. Was I think we already know, right? Capistan's coming under siege, and sort of it opens up with the days leading up to the siege. So there's amazing setup in this, but we know this is going to happen. So there's this really, I think, kind of pivotal moment sort of early on that maybe we could start with there. And if we need to roll back, we can roll back and we can kind of go forward.
yeah,
But when our our one of our favorites, right, Stony Manakis, has her one of not well, we don't know if it's her first, but like this pretty traumatic event in the heat of battle as the forces of Capustan are holding against the Panion, and this like completely changes the game for Gruntle. So I thought that might be a good place to start, and then we just
yeah,
if we need to, like I said, if we need to roll backwards in time, we roll backwards in time.
sure.
But I thought that might be a good place to start.
I mean, overall, yeah. I guess before we get right deep into the plot, um, I just want to say, and
My internet
we'll
cutting
touch
out.
back on this with what's that?
I we just had I had a Discord freeze for a second,
Oh,
but
I say
if
yeah.
we're doing
I
good
think
on
you
your
froze
side,
on my. You did freeze on my side for a sec, but you're back.
okay, okay,
You're
yeah.
back. So I'll keep an eye on that as well. But yeah. I mean, I think at this point we just, until we hit a part where we're like, yeah, I didn't love that part.
Mhm.
We're just gonna assume we both loved the part because I did.
I mean,
I think you
I
did.
mean, it was like this part was like almost. I mean, like it's like just barely behind just the I guess ending of Dead House Gate.
Chain of
It's like
dogs or whatever.
yeah, the chain of dogs, man. It's just like this. This
Yeah,
is just so good.
it was. Yeah, it was definitely one of
Yeah.
the better parts of Malazan for me. And honestly, a lot of it was a surprise. That's kind of what I want to say too. Is like,
Um,
Itkovian has emerged as like peak Malazan for me after this part,
yeah.
and I just had no idea that was coming. And same with, I mean, I think Itkovian right now is like my number one. Like, I
He's like
love
taking
Itkovian.
memories of ice. It's like this. He's the main character. Like,
He's
how did this happen?
He kind of is, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love everything he
Yeah.
stands for. I love it.
Yeah.
I love his part, and then Gruntle too. Like, I mean, I think Gruntle makes a lot of sense with the setup, right? He's, I think, maybe the first character we see outside of the prologue, and the first character we follow. So it does make sense. Um, but Akovian just like kind of came in, was one of those characters I was like, all right, we got these three new people. They all have weird names, but it seemed like the other two were more important, Carnatus and Bricalion. And then he comes in at the end. He's like, "Me too. I'm Ikovian." But since then has become just such an awesome character. So he was really the star of this part for me. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I love it. So, but yeah, let's Gruntle was also, I was not expecting this
Mhm.
storyline for Gruntle either. So classic Steven Erickson, he's just like, he probably isn't even going like, you think you know, because like he's probably like, you don't know what's coming, because yeah, I mean, we might as well just not do predictions because they're never going to be right.
I predict that there will be some swords
Yeah,
and some people will get killed and there'll be some names that are new.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. Well, do you want to kick it off? You want me to kick it off?
Yeah, go ahead and kick it off. I feel like yeah, if there's
Yeah.
that moment that's speaking to you, we'll start there.
Yeah. So, for my fellow fantasy lovers out there, which I assume is all of us since we're going through Malazan, there was definitely a lot of vibes in this one that are very like reminiscent of like Return of the King and like the Siege of Gondor in many ways, where it's just like you have a force that's being overwhelmed, that's having to hold it. And I love like what how Erickson decided to go about this, where it's very clear that the forces we're holding are superior in terms of skill, but they just don't have the numbers. And so their plan is that they know they're going to lose, so they're going to retreat, but they're going to make just every inch of that city cost the Pandomin just extraordinarily, right? Like but they have the numbers to make it work, but they are going to make them pay in blood for every single inch. And so the way this kind of starts is really, really interesting because you can kind of imagine that in a way, like the front line is going to be some of the strongest defense that there is, but it's also in other ways going to be just absolutely and brutally assaulted because it's also going to be in some sense like the most open in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like the other fights are in bottlenecks, like through city streets and things like that as they're retreating. But despite just the sheer amount of danger, we have this character like Stony Manakis, who is going to be one of those people who wants to be closer to the front lines. She comes from being a merchant who's like sort of working along Grundle, and like there's that like, kind of like love tension that's working. But ever since her interaction with Karuli, and maybe it just was always in her, she wants to jump in. She tries to convince Gruntle, and he's like, "No, like this is stupid. I'm just going to get drunk in a bar, basically." But then there's this crazy scene where he's like looking for her
So,
and he finds
sorry,
her.
real quick
Yeah.
before we get to
Mhm.
that, I'm just
Yep.
curious because, um, yeah, the last time we saw her was with Karuli saying like, basically like telling Gruntle you should swear yourself to Karul along with me
Yeah.
and
Yep. Yep.
Karuli. So, do from what I remember, we don't really get why does she end up fighting on the front lines? Which is
No,
interesting because, like
yeah.
you said, it changes. Maybe that is just something to think about. Like that's clearly if she's that committed to Karuli
Mhm.
and Karul, who we find out later on is just like a physical manifestation of Karul. Um,
I know those moments where like you really were like, I needed to come up with another name for
how
cruel.
did we not see it,
I,
dude? How did we
I'm gonna call
Karuli.
it cruelly.
Yeah. But I didn't see it coming. I was just like, oh yeah, duh. That makes so much
Yeah,
sense. It's
it's one of those
right
things where it's
there.
like I was like you can't do it because it's so dumb.
Yeah.
You're like Steven Erickson wouldn't do that. It's
Yeah.
too obvious.
Yep. And there was, but
Yeah,
yeah, it
and
makes
there it
me
was.
wonder like if he was like at some point he must have told her like this is what you need to do, which is interesting. So Karuli, or Karul, I guess, must have really thought that this battle was a huge turning point. Um,
Well, and it's just like it gets into some really cool themes. I mean, I think we don't really get her going through, and I mean, frankly, I like the way it's handled. We don't get these massive expositions
mm-hmm.
from from Gruntle or from Stony. We get their really like fun interactions, and they obviously reveal a lot about the characters through those interactions, but not necessarily like the full life story or full intent. We're kind of just left with the idea that she felt in her heart of hearts after sort of her conversion, which in large part also, I mean, remember, Karuli saved them,
Yep.
right? And I think that you were mentioning, for example, he must have told her. I kind of wonder if maybe it was actually in the dream when, because remember, Karul, right,
Mm.
master of dreams, another big giveaway, by the way, because we know Karul is a master of dreams because of Kruppa, and so that's how Karuli saved them was by bringing them into dreams, and it was from that dream where they were saved from the Shane Kamala that she had that conversion experience. So she might very well have like come face to face with Karul in that dream, and then Gruntle maybe not because he's so like in a sense hardened of heart towards the elder gods and the whole thing, right?
He's just
That
bitter
may
at
be
this
like
point.
he's bitter, and like he lost Harlow, and so
Yeah.
it's very likely the case that Cruel had approached him, he would be just furious, right? And so because especially more so because they couldn't save Harlow, and we even see some of that dialogue, right?
Yep.
But yeah, and so I think we're just meant to understand that she sees this as doing something for the greater good, and she feels like a need to do that.
Yeah.
And that yeah, this is probably important. And then there's also just the themes of like providence, like maybe there is a degree to which by her doing this, then you get Gruntle basically becoming a mortal sword, And in many ways, this is just like the weave that's shaping the fabric of the universe, right? Like these are the events that are meant to happen.
Yep.
So yeah, so there's like some fun themes there. But yeah, but she fights in this. Gruntle comes to his senses. He feels for Stony, and he knows how much danger she's putting herself in, and so he goes to find her. He does. She has slayed many men, but she is in absolute tatters. Her rapier is broken. She visibly looks broken, and it doesn't take Gruntle very long to realize what had happened.
Hmm.
And I will say, like for me too, reading that it was still like in a way shocking, just because like we know like how terrible the Pupanian Domin is, but with the introduction of like the Children of the Dead Seed, I will say this idea that you had these female Teniscowri who are essentially like throwing themselves onto dead men,
Hmm.
in order to become pregnant. There just was always sort of this like focus on, you know, cannibalism and like, the raping of dead men and like things like this that they're just absolutely shocked by this. And you're like, oh yeah, this is just horrible. And it kind of in a way distracted from just what the normal terrors of war are. And then here we see it. It's just like we have a woman, a female warrior, a woman who's going into battle with these, men who are essentially just like in a barbaric rage against the city, trying to break through. And she manages to get basically separated from her group, and then you just have these men who are acting upon their baseless desires. She manages to escape. I think basically kills one of them in the process. Maybe I think even the one who did the act, and then she's just sort of left broken,
Hmm.
right, from that, and it just drives this like spear through Gruntle's heart, right? It's
Yeah,
like
it's an
it's
emotional
like
scene with
it
not a
is.
lot of like. Uh, I mean, there is a lot of dialogue, but like, I don't know, man. Like Gruntle's like he 180s quickly, but it's the most believable
Mhm,
180 ever. And like, yeah, I think their dialogue and just their interaction together, you can see how much he deeply cares for her.
mhm.
um yeah, it was like an emotional scene that I wasn't really ready for it. But yeah, you're right. And I think the especially in contrast to the tennis scoury of like there is like this animalistic nature to them, but this is the person that assaulted her is in like a position of higher caliber and
He's
more.
not a tennis scholar. He's like one of
Exactly,
these
he's just
opinion
a
dominators. He's
soldier
like,
or like a
yeah,
captain of a. So
yeah.
like, yeah, it's just yeah, it sucks. It sucked.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just broke her and it broke Gruntle and that which broke me. I was
Yeah,
just like, oh shit, like this.
yeah.
I'm like, I like Gruntle now. Just that
Mhm.
conversation completely, like the way he 180. Just I didn't dislike Gruntle before, but like he just kind of felt like a character to me. But that conversation, I was just like, yep, I like you now.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, it's just, I mean, it really is just heart wrenching because, in some ways it's like he's got to be there because, like, if something, if Sony were to get killed, right, and he's not there, like, he would, especially with what happened with Harlow, like, he wouldn't forgive himself. But then it's
Yep.
just like, this is what happened. Like, this is what he encounters instead, and it's like this element of like, well, if I had been here, could I have stopped that, right?
Hmm.
But then there's just that other element that's just so heart wrenching because, I mean, it's not like we want to see her get killed. That would be really tragic and sad as well. But there's like a certain dignity, like in the, she's putting herself on the line to fight for like the greater good of Capustan. She like falls in battle, and that's like the risk that she's taking.
Yeah, this is like almost
Um,
worse.
and it's like almost worse because there's just like this complete like utter loss of dignity. Like there's
Hmm.
there's dignity in dying a hero's death, but it like in this case it's just completely stripped
Hmm.
from her. And Gruntle is just he just like it hits him like a wave, right? That realization, and he takes her away from the lines. And you can see like as he's like sort of taking her away and preparing, there's this, like you said, complete 180 where before he was like, I'm gonna get drunk, what's the point? And now there's this element of like, even if I were to kill 1,000 Panendomen, like it would not be enough
Hmm.
to pay the debt that is now owed.
Yep.
And he puts on his armor, he draws these cutlasses, and there's just sort of this moment, Stony says like, you're the best fighter I've ever known, and there's this moment where it becomes truly believable,
Hmm.
right? And so Gruntle is finally like dawning on a new purpose, a new goal, and one that's, I mean, unfortunately, it's just seething in vengeance, so to speak, or maybe you might say of vengeance. But he has a very directed and intentful aim of completely obliterating the Tenniscauri and the Panion Domain specifically.
Yeah. And
And
Capustan would have
this
fallen
paves,
a lot sooner
mhm.
had this
Well,
not
and
event not happened. Yeah.
right, and what's crazy about this? I mean, this kind of speaks to like him coming into these powers, but what this effectively leads to, what this path sets him on, is he then is going to be set on the path to become the mortal coil of Trake, who is a character that we see who was essentially a soul taken who could change into the form of a tiger and became crazed. Actually, in fact, I think this goes all the way back to part one, because when and maybe I'm confusing part of the prologue with part one, but I don't think I am. But when the guy gave the corrupted deck to uh,
Cripple God.
what trying to say? The crippled god. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
He had to basically get past these guards by convincing them that he had this like the special holy relic
Mm-hmm.
that could be like an arm brace, and it was like for they talked about for Trake, and like Quick Ben was there and things like this, right? And so like right at the beginning, like we get Trake, who's this crazed soul taken, and we learn from Talk the Younger and from his sort of visions that Drake was soul taken, died to the chain Kamala, and then became ascended. And so he's actually one of the newer ascendants. I mean, I think essentially it's going to be Trake and then Shadow Throne, right? I mean, these are essentially our newest ascendants, um, and and so the kind of interesting thing is that even though he ascended, there's no pantheon to go with him, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. I mean, not pantheon, but there's no mortal coil, there's no shield envelope, there's no nothing. Like the house was never filled
Yep.
for some reason or another. We don't know. And maybe that's just because Fenrir was always there, right? But
Yeah,
then
there can only
now
be one god of god of war, at least in
mhm.
Malazan, it seems, which
Yep.
currently at this point in time is held by Fenrir.
and and so this kind of lays the path for this house to now start being filled. And so we get official confirmation that at least during this time, right, kind of sometime during part two, going into part three, is when in Deadhouse Gates, Fenrir has now been pulled into the mortal realm.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that we're somewhere along that point in that story. And the soldiers, the gray swords, who are a mercenary rank that worships Fenrir, they know it. They can feel it in their heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so a new god of war is needed, which is its own like degree of depression, because it sort of solidifies this idea that like Fenrir may not be coming back, right? Like this isn't like a temporary vacation to get into the mortal realm while there's a whirling sandstorm and
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of people leading rebellion against the Malazans. But like there's this sort of like idea of like he may not be coming back. Like there's something vulnerable, right? In Fenrir being in the mortal realm. And so a new god of war is needed, and Trake, even though young, steps up to the plate and becomes a new god of war. And it's really, for me, this part of it was really cool. This the fact that it's like now coming home, that like when these people ascend, they assemble their troops on Earth, which is just like it's just this sort of cool element, because like we're seeing that with the the crippled god and the House of Chains, and like
Mm-hmm.
people sort of being assembled to these roles. I also really like the fact that they twisted the roles too. They have different
Let's say they have
names.
different names, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if do we know are they actually to like the same degree as like a
Mhm.
house? They are just different names.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just because of the way the crippled god altered the deck, is they occupy different roles because he wanted to
Mm-hmm.
invert them. So now they have, they'll be like a jester, for example, rather than like a shield amble or things like that,
I
or a
see.
destrian. Sorry, like a jester instead of a destrian. So it's just meant to be like all inverted,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is just really cool. But yeah, so Trake has got to assemble his troops, and so this you might call a passion, but this like sense of vengeance, I think in many ways just resonates with Drake. And I think it's also very fitting, by the way, that he dies to the Chain Kamala, and we know that the undead, Chain Kamala are fighting alongside the Panion Domain.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's also really fascinating that in some sense they have a common enemy. Um, but you were talking about how Capustan might have fallen
Yeah.
sooner, right? Had this not happened. But the crazy thing is like the number of troops that he ends up leading. So first of all, he's got like no troops that he leads, but he rallies these people behind him. And it's, by the way, it's not even just him, right? Like this militia that forms around him, they all start to feel the effect of the blessings of Drake. Like they basically become their own version of the great swords.
Mm-hmm.
And it like fully solidifies for us like the power of what it means to be a mortal sword. We had this whole conversation in part 2 about whether or not Bukarian is like really the mortal sword. Like, is he really? Because that's a significant title, and now we see why. Because like they're basically like demigods, and they that blessing like emanates to those around them who fight with them. But he had a militia of 100 troops. That was it. It
Mm-hmm.
was him and 100 troops, and they held this line, which is just crazy.
They even went out. I think right. They go to the
Yeah.
west gate and they go
Mhm.
outside the gate to meet them.
Yeah.
And I think I can't remember if it's before they go out or after. It makes more sense to be before, but how he rallies even it might be after. How he
Yep.
rallies like the just normal people living there with
Yep.
the. It's also pretty
He finds
gruesome.
a
It's like
yeah.
a
He finds
child
a
that's
job.
literally been like cut in half basically,
Hmm.
and then uses his tunic as like a banner, which is also super powerful. Like
Yep.
that, just like I don't even want to say like badass because it's like it's not like it, but it is. How everyone rallies around it. That's like what is so
Yeah.
badass about it. And like, yeah, these
Hmm.
people who are just cowering, waiting for death, are like, nah, fuck that. We're gonna fight. Um,
Hmm.
and so yeah, then his numbers go up even
Yep.
more. I think,
Hmm.
which was
Yeah.
just yeah awesome to see like normal humans. There's a lot of like weird. There's a weird amount of like hope for
Hmm.
such a dark part. There's a lot of hope that we'll talk about other parts too, with just
Yep.
like what a shield. That was one of my favorite parts, like what a shield anvil is, because we didn't really know to this part, and it was not at all what I was expecting to be. But like, I love it. Like it's just a
Yeah.
lot of like hope, which is
Yeah.
very cool.
Well, and now we can kind of say like essentially what each role represents. And so, now we kind of know like what a mortal sword is for. A mortal sword is to lead the militia, right? The soldiers, the soldier militant. And it's kind of interesting too, like um because we actually use similar terminology in the Catholic Church as well. So we have this like term called like the church militant, which is essentially just like the active members on earth. And so essentially they have that kind of like same concept but like in this case, it's capital M militant, right? Like
Yeah,
they're out there to fight.
yeah.
And so it's like the mortal sword is essentially like the leader of this militant group that serves for, in this case, the god of war. And they are also the justice, like they're the living embodiment of justice. They carry the sword, right, that wields the justice on behalf of that particular god. And so that's their role. And they are also, I mean, we'll get into that in a little bit later, but like they carry out the punishments when people break the law of the particular commandments issued by that god of war, which is just like very, very cool. And I love the idea that, Gruntle is not, what's the right word for this? There's no ceremony here for him. There's no members. There's no like Wrath Drake or anything like this who comes up to him and it's like, do you want to be the mortal sword? There's no herald approaching him, right? That we see, and maybe something like that happens, but we don't see it. And so I just kind of like this idea that there's just this like in the heat of battle, there's just like this understanding in his heart that like like his intent and Drake's intent they align, right? And that he's just then blessed,
Mhm.
right, with this opportunity and blessed with like being the mortal sword,
He's
and it just
also
like
like
physically,
borderline a man possessed, because at
yes,
some point he like comes out of it, and it was just him and
yeah,
Stony are it's like he comes out of a trance. So it's like there is a
mhm,
part. It's like it does seem like Trake was like you and
yep,
like took
exactly,
over but it makes sense why he chose Gruntle
hmm
but yeah, you're right, there was no like, do you want to be this? He's just like,
hmm
nope, you're it. I'm gonna
yep,
take over for a little bit, and we'll see you later,
hmm
which is yeah,
and
really
he
interesting.
gets yeah, and he gets these tattoos, and his eyes are like tiger
Yeah, he starts to
eyes.
look like a tiger.
Yeah, and so it's just like, it's like this whole transformation,
The
right?
swords too. They
And
kept calling them.
yeah,
They called them tusks at first,
yep.
and he's like, "No, call them tiger claws." It's just like, hell yeah, like yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
what's picture like if there's a whole bunch of people around, it's like, no, the tiger laws, and everyone's like,
yeah,
oh, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's just,
But it was cool. Yeah, it was
oh,
cool to see
it's,
like
yeah.
the full like. I'm trying to think because like Brucalion is the mortal sword of Fenner, but he ain't out here
Yep.
looking like a boar. Like,
Nope.
so I don't know if it's because like Trake was like, you, I'm gonna kind of almost be like take over you, like an
Hmm.
actual possession kind of thing, and that's why he's showing. Because I can't remember when he does come out of that trance. Does that go away? It does.
No, 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 because other people still recognize him for his tattoos. Yep.
Okay,
So he
okay.
still has them.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe it's just like because the god, stepped in, maybe
Hmm.
that is why it like modified his physical,
I think so,
being.
because we kind of know where the tattoos come from now, which is because we learned this from Wrath Fenner. And the tattoos actually represent the possession of a god.
Yeah.
They're not always with tattoos, right? Like sorry, right? Didn't have tattoos as far as we know, but there's something particularly powerful in this case, and so I think you're right. I think it was this possession by Trake, and in some sense, this sense of vengeance, just being like, if you're, if that's gonna mean I'm gonna have the power to destroy the Panion Domain, like it's all you. You go,
I wonder if
right?
the yeah, it's really interesting you brought up sorry because I was thinking like, well, she really is like possessed in the same way of like she's not even in there, or sorry,
Yep.
she's in there, but there's no like she's not operating her own body or anything. It's just like she's almost trapped inside of herself. But
Hmm.
I wonder if the Candle Witch was the reason why she didn't get tattooed because
Hmm.
there was like a
Could be.
warring party in there.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think, have we seen anybody else that's like truly been possessed like that to where like they're not in control at all?
Mhm.
I don't know if we have, so I wonder if that might have something to do with it. But yeah,
Yeah, and I think it does leave its mark, and I think that's why the tattoos are still there. And we've had precedent for that as well in Deadhouse Gates, right? Of an individual's gone through the same process, and so which is I just thought was super cool, and we'll obviously get to that when we start talking about
yeah, there's a lot of
carrying.
like,
Mhm.
yeah, I
Yeah.
bookmarked a couple parts that I was just like, there's too much information to jot down notes.
Mhm.
And when we get there, I'll probably just read a couple sections because there's so much
Mhm.
important stuff that goes back and forward, presumably. And it's just like I got to bookmark a couple of things, and that is one of them with like Heberick and Fenner and the hands and
Yep.
all
Yep.
that. I'm just like, it's one of those that like it's like I am following, um, and then it's just like information overload, and then
Mhm.
it's we've talked about it before. It's not like normal books where there come these moments when you're like, oh, information's important. Okay, now we can breathe a little bit. He's just
Mhm.
like, nope. Here's all this information, and now there's more information. So it's really
Mhm.
hard to be like, I'm remembering you because you got to remember all of it.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, we'll get to that part. That part is crazy. I mean, all of it's crazy. But
Mhm.
yeah, so you're talking about we know the roles. So Mortal
Yep.
Sword, we went over.
Yep. Yep.
Hits with the
And
Destriant.
then yep, and we have the Destriant and we have the Shield Anvil, and then now, but as far as Trake is concerned. Now there is a Wrath Drake, correct? I'm not crazy in
There
that. There is
is
a
a
Wrath
Wrath
Drake.
Trake, yeah,
Yep.
in the
But we
Mass
don't
Council.
know that he's the Destriant.
Correct.
Yeah,
But
that's
it
not
might
been
be
confirmed.
safe to
He
well,
could be.
actually, no, yeah, because I don't think it was like Mass Council equals Destriant. I think just
No.
Wrath Fenner was claiming he is also the Destriant,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yep. But it's possible, but we don't know. And there's no shield anvil currently. But and then as far as I remember, although you may remember better, but after we get this moment where Wrath Drake is like, "You're the mortal sword." Like he sees the tattoos, he sees the eyes, And he's like, and he knows, like he can feel it, right? As this priest of Trake, and he's like, you're the mortal sword of Trake. Like Trake is the god of war. He's taken that position, and he's electing his people, and like you're the mortal sword. But I don't think we really see. I think we from there we move fronts, and I don't think we really see Gruntle kind of fighting again for some time, and then it kind of just focuses mostly on a carrion, right?
Yeah, I think the next time we really see any kind of talk about his position is when he's talking with Piran. And they're kind of saying,
Mm-hmm.
like, you got to do this now that you're the Mortal Sword. He's like, no, I'm going to do what I
Yep.
want because
Yeah.
I don't care about that.
Yeah.
And Piran's like, hell yeah. Like, me
Yeah.
too, brother. Me too. But yeah, I think I think I can't remember when he like snaps out of it. It might not be yet until we're with Piran and everyone else that he kind of comes to. Oh no, you know what it is? It's when Itkovian like takes the grief of that like alien thing that's taking over Wrath Fenner, and like Itkovian basically dies and Piran brings him back, and like all of the like pain
Yep.
and grief of the whole city gets like cleansed, and that's the moment
Yep.
when Gruntle comes to. So yeah, it hasn't happened yet. Um, when we see him in that moment, I think he's
Mhm.
still kind of just possessed in the, and yeah, he's just being told like, yeah, you're the mortal sword.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, so it might be a good time to just jump over to Carrium. Not
Oh,
Carrium, but
yeah.
yeah, Jacobium. Yeah.
The other, yeah, it's the I names. I
Yeah.
guess they're all good. If
Yeah.
we see an I
Yeah.
name, they're gonna be
Yeah.
a good
Yeah, it's
character.
gonna be good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Kobe, I mean, I'm in awe at how much I like this character. He's
Yeah.
just badass and like, even in the way, which by the way we didn't really talk too much about, but you kind of mentioned like we don't get a ton of for this being hundreds of pages of like a siege. We don't get that many battles, and like
Mm-mm.
God bless Steven Erickson because
Yeah.
like you could write this in such a different way and I would be so bored. But like the way we're
Hmm.
jumping lines and like Kovian's
Hmm.
like up on like the battlements, like
Yep.
or almost like a freaking maestro, like
Yep.
orchestrating things and yeah, they're sending people to get information about who's where. Then he goes down and meets with Gruntle and yeah, just awesome stuff. But yeah, I don't even know where to start with him. He's up there
Yeah.
basically saying, I mean, like he's the first one we get the point of view of where we see
Yep.
Capustan is surrounded. They're
Yep.
gonna attack. Like, um,
And is it important to note too that he takes this vantage point, like you said, to kind of be a maestro. But this is not some like lofty tower in the middle of the city. Like he takes a vantage point where he can see the conflict. He's actually like just on the edge of bow range,
mhm,
basically, right? He could be, and they take shots at him, and he recognizes this. And he's like, "I'll stay here a little bit longer, even if just to taunt them."
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Oh,
And he starts.
it's
I
just
think we also start off with him struggling a little bit with like. I think he finally has accepted that he is willing to sleep with, uh,
no.
Hetan or I can't remember. I think it's
Eden.
Hetan, Heaton,
Eden, yeah, yeah. Eden is how they pronounce it
Eaton.
in the audible.
What you
Yeah,
eating?
Eden. Like the H is silent.
What you
Exactly, the
eating?
H is silent. Eden.
So he's like, I'm willing to do it,
Yeah,
but then doesn't end up doing it because like the battle starts. But there's a conversation he has with Carnatus, who Carnatus
the
is like,
Destrian.
yeah, the Destrian, who's basically
Yeah,
like, I mean, it doesn't say you can't. Like, this is just something you've done for yourself to
yeah,
stay, committed, which I
yeah,
thought was kind of funny. And like the
yeah,
previous parts, I think in all the darkness, Steven Erickson
yeah.
continues to put comedy in there, but like
Yeah. This is
believable
the
comedy.
funniest part. This is the
Yeah,
funniest part of the whole book, which
yeah,
isn't
there's some
crazy. Just,
seriously like laugh out loud moments. Yeah, but yeah, so I mean,
ugh,
things start to go bad.
yeah.
At some point, he leaves the tower, and he meets up with Bracalion and Carnatus. But to get there,
So,
he has like a final stand in which
yeah,
he's like, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna fight these
yep,
Tenascauri, literally on like 8 foot deep piles of bodies. Like this, there's not
hmm
even streets anymore. He's riding a horse over layers of bodies. He's just like, this is it. Like I'm going down, but I'm going down the way I want to go down. But then it kind of just clears up, and he meets up with Brocalion and
Yeah.
Carnatus.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things too
Is it
where like there's
Carnatus? Carnitas? What's it? What's his
I
name?
don't think it's Carnitas.
It is. It's Carnatus. Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Go ahead, Tesla, please.
But yeah, we get this gruesome scene, and like he's taking hits, and like his horse is taking hits.
Yeah. There.
And
Yeah.
but you're right, and there's sort of this like swirl of information around it, but it's sort of like we're kind of meant to understand that like with the way like his strategy, because it's his strategy for defending the city of like basically retreating tactically and like making them pay for every inch, and then the resurgence kind of led by Gruntle, and then Brucalion coming onto the Mets. It sort of leads to the circumstance where the lines are starting to break, and so even though they're getting surrounded, the Tenniscari don't have enough in that particular area, and so there's this sort of opening where they're able to push through. And they're able to meet it back up with Rukalian, which is just this like awesome scene because we kind of imagine. I mean, like this is it, right? Like this is he's believing it's it. Like it really does look like this is where he goes down, but not yet. And so he's able to
Yeah.
make it through.
And this was day 2, by the way, of the battle.
Yep.
So yeah, day
Yep.
2 is when he goes down. And this is kind of, I think this is the first time, or one of the first times. Actually, no, I think the first time is the first night that Carnatus meets with Akovian and heals him. And heals him, and you can tell that, or he can tell that he basically says something to himself like, something's wrong with the Warren. He's going to die doing this. Like, he's going to die healing. And then day 2, when he is, like, dying from his wounds and his horse and everything, Brucalion Carnata shows up and he heals him again. And it is very, like, it is hurting Carnatus because of the Warren being poison that he is calling on. And I think just the effort he's putting into it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not just like, it's not just one person. It's not just the shield ample. Like he is healing soldier after soldier after soldier.
Now, is that what you are thinking, that is the Destrian's role?
Yeah, so we can talk about the Destriant. So I think the Destriant's role is the role of healer. So he's sort of meant to bring the like mercy is not the right word, but I think he's supposed to in some sense like bring vigor. Like he brings life, he brings vigor, he brings counsel. But I think that's ultimately his role is he's there to bring like the god's life in a sense. Like he is able to bring life back to those around him.
Yeah.
To share like the blessings and charity like from that particular god.
Yeah. Well, so going from here, I think before we can continue with Covian, we have to talk about Fenner's Reeve. Is that how you say Reeve?
They pronounce it Rev.
Rev.
Yeah,
So yeah, as the three of them are meeting, someone shows up from the from the thrall, saying, "Hey, Wrath Fenner has called or invoked Fenner's Rev," which I think we are just to assume is some kind of like law or whatever, in which
Yeah,
that
at
he
first
needs
I
to go
thought-
protect him or something.
Yeah. At first I thought it was like one thing and then it seemed like it was another thing. But just kind of based on what happens in this particular part, I believe the Rev represents like the commandments, like the commandments that they have to uphold.
They have to, yeah, exactly.
And so because the mortal sword is like the justice of Fenner, that when the Rev is invoked, that he must respond because he has to be the one to carry out the justice.
Yeah, and it's a super interesting scene because he basically, I think he basically immediately knows I'm gonna die. Like this is a betrayal, because he's like, well, how did you make it through all these bodies untouched? Like that's a little sus, but so he immediately knows like I'm going to die here, but I have to do this to oust Wrath Fenner, the traitor. And so this is a really interesting part for me because he not only takes himself, but he spares the messenger, which is important. Who then becomes um, a I can't remember if she becomes the mortal sword or
She became
the shield
Shield
anvil,
Anvil.
shield anvil, but
No, sorry. She becomes the Destriant,
Destrian.
the
Okay, yeah.
recruit. Yeah, yeah.
But an important role that at first he's just like, let's go, and he's like, actually, you know what, stay. Like he, I think he realizes like you didn't have any part in that, which is interesting because he's showing like he's sparing the innocent, but in order to do that, he does take quite a few gray swords with him,
Hmm.
and gray swords that are like, are we gonna die here? And he's just like, yes, we're gonna die,
Yeah,
but we have to.
yeah.
Which is interesting because like, did they all? There's a lot of people he brought. So yeah, I just found that interesting. Of like, he does bring quite a few, and they do get massacred. And Bricalian's death was just, I mean, that whole scene was crazy, but like, what a scene! His death was
Yeah.
awesome. It kind of did remind me of the scene in Fellowship where he's just like getting shot. The guy that's getting shot by the arrows. My Lord of the Rings knowledge is pretty
Yeah,
poor,
Boromir.
but Boromir, yeah, and it's just like
Yeah.
super dramatic, like
Mhm. Yeah.
slow
So,
motion. The
but
sword, I think,
I can
explodes.
give you the background though on how this happened.
Yeah,
So
yeah, give it
what
to
you
me.
got to understand about this particular scene is that Steven Erickson was trying to figure out how this should go, and he wasn't quite sure. So
Is this
he
serious?
called Zack Snyder, and he's like, Zack Snyder, what should I do with these like 400 soldiers?
Yeah.
And that they need to disobey, and they need to like they get this whole thing, and they're gonna disobey their reason and logic, and they're just gonna like plunge themselves into the fray. He's like, 400 soldiers, you say? I once had 300 soldiers.
This is Capustan.
Let me ask you, how do you feel about slow motion? Have
Yeah,
you
yeah.
considered
He's like, you,
that
what,
that's
you
what this
like,
reminded me
you
of?
could write this in 2 pages, or hear me out.
Or,
We get Brandon Sanderson in here. We make this scene 500 pages because everything's going to be in slow motion.
dude, if Zack Snyder wrote the scene, it would just be like increasingly more white space in between
Yeah.
sentences. That would be like the narrative equivalent of slow motion.
Yeah.
Just But like they even turtle up too. Like that's the other thing is like there's like the rain of arrows and they turtle up so the arrows bouncing the shields and I'm just like this is literally the scene from 300 when Leonidas is like kneeling to Xerxes and then the guy like jumps out and throws a spear and then the arrows come in and I mean but like that's essentially what it is. Like they know that they're not going to live past this battle and so they're choosing to respond in honor to a call that they're duty bound to respond to, and to go into the jaws right of death, but to face it with honor and courage as sort of their final act.
And they
And
do.
it's
I
just a
mean,
very yeah.
yeah, they do really face it with courage, which is impressive. For Bricalian, I think we expect it, but
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of them too, I
Mm-hmm.
was I was pretty impressed. And then Hood swoops in. He's like, mine, mine,
Mm-hmm.
mine. He comes in and he gets them. He gets them all.
Yep.
And then I think Itkovian has a vision of this or sees this or finds out about it or whatever. Um, and I think from there, he doesn't go straight there, if I remember correctly. Then he
Mm-hmm.
goes to Prince Jarlakin's tower. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he goes.
Yep.
Is it?
No,
How do they say it
he
in the book?
yeah
Jarlakin.
yeah Jark yeah so Jarkin I think
Okay.
yeah
Which is the
but
tower in itself
yeah
continues to be interesting because like it's just like a weird alien structure. Nothing can
yep.
harm it. There's one door, no windows. Like it does seem
Mm-hmm.
like it's from like a previous uh, civilization or something, with maybe some magics involved or something. I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah
Just a weird
no.
building. But yeah, they show up. Kovian brings some gray swords and they go there to save the prince, basically. Which the worst part is that the prince in the very beginning, before the battle starts, I think comes to Itkovian and is like, "We gotta go," and Itkovian's like, "Nope,
Nope.
we got to stay." And we find out later that or maybe I can't remember when we find out, but there were tunnels that they've built that can house all the civilians and all of that. But
And specifically the gray swords had those built too, which is
oh, okay, I
that's
missed that.
yeah, yeah. That they are the ones who had it. Like they are the ones who ordered it to be built.
Okay,
So I mean, they really, really did follow through on exactly what they were hired to do. And I
Yeah.
mean, they prioritized, it's not that they didn't prioritize the prince, who was the one who hired them, but they were technically hired for the defense of Capustan. They were
Yeah.
not hired to be the prince's bodyguards,
Hmm.
even though they do, in some sense, occupy that role. And they really held true to that. I mean, they did everything they possibly could to make sure that the citizens and civilians, even to the extent of leaving some of their own behind, like they assigned gray sword warriors to be in the tunnels as the last line of defense, if the Teniskauri ever come down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they show up at this tower, and the Teniskauri are already there. The children of the Dead Seed, more specifically,
Mm.
and Anakin is
Mm-hmm.
Anastair is there, and so is Prince Jarlakin, but
Mm.
no longer with us. Prince Jarlakin, he has been brutally murdered, skinned, and his skin has been hung up while they eat the rest of him, or something like that. I can't remember if they're actually
Yep.
eating him or
Yep.
not, but I know his skin's
Yep.
been
Yep.
hung up.
Yeah, they are. Yep.
And it's gruesome. It's brutal. And then this is when we get the reveal of what the shield anvil is. In that they are basically there to not eat the grief. I don't know how the consume the grief on behalf of their god.
Yeah. So I
To
think,
people.
I think, I think the way to kind of represent it is they are the mercy of their God in the deepest way possible, and so they are literally there to bear the sorrows of others, so
Mm.
that they don't have to bear it themselves. And so it's this very like it's really just like this fascinating like sort of if you want to call it theology, right? Sort of pieces of theology for this world of like these in a way like these gods because they act through mortals like when they bring their mercy to their followers to other people who they resonate with or whatever they're not like waving their hands so to speak and then the grief goes away and peace places it but actually they take that onto themselves and in this case, the shield anvil is sort of the mortal version of that, where he takes on the grief for himself, and then this is like the important part is he doesn't bear it himself, right? The shield anvil has is I used to think when we were going through part two, that, like the mortal coil was like the true leader, but like it's actually the shield anvil that's the glue. I mean, the shield anvil holds everything together, and the shield anvil bears this grief on behalf of their god, but their god bears it with them,
Mm-hmm.
which is like what makes like these next scenes like so painful because Fenrir's not there.
Fair's not there, yeah. But it also gives us a lot of information without
Mm.
Anastair, because that's what Kovian says. He's like, I'll take all of your. I think he says despair instead of grief,
Yeah,
but same
take it to
same
spare.
deal, right? I'll take your despair, and Anastair freaks out because
Hmm.
that's all he is. He has nothing
Yeah,
else. And so
yeah.
if Kovian does that, then he will cease to exist. And yeah, so basically, I think after that they fight,
Yep.
and Anastair and his
It's
mother get
sort
away.
of fight.
Yeah, sort of
Sort
fight.
of fight. The Tuscari, like Anister freaks out, it's like get them. Like he already like Jacoby, like, he already has a line of crossbows. So, like I mean, that fight is done
Yeah,
like
it's done.
that.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Anastair and the mother or the women, I think,
yeah.
escape.
Anister and yeah, they do. Yep, exactly. They're managed to escape like we do see this actually like several times with Jacovian, but it's we don't know to what extent the Destriant and the Mortal Coil have precognition or precognition or like foresight. However, it does appear that both of them have some kind of opportunity to look into things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like Brucalion, for example, has a pretty crazy amount of wisdom in a way. To first see through the trap and everything like that, and to
Yeah.
know like in his heart of hearts that like Jacovian is going to be aware of what happened. But Jacovian, when he sees people, he
Do they
just
call him
knows.
Jacovian?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
That's so weird.
I thi-
There's no J in
Yeah.
his name. It's
Yeah.
Itcovian.
Jacovian, I know.
That's
I
hilarious.
think it might also just be my ears. They're kind of maybe they're not as good as they used to be. But yeah, but so Jacovian, like I mean, he takes one look at somebody and he just can peer into their soul, and
Which is
it's
crazy that
so
it's just crazy
yeah.
that I don't know. I love the name it makes perfect sense when you find out what it is, but it's also misleading, and you make an assumption as a reader of like kind of what their role is.
Hmm.
And it was not this. but I'm really
Well,
glad it was this because it's just so I don't. It's just awesome, like a cool.
mhm.
Yeah, like I said, there's like mercy is a huge theme here, where you would think it's absent, and it shows up again and again, which I think then kind of sparks a lot of like hope for me,
Yeah.
rather than it just being grim, 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 grim. So yeah,
Mhm.
I love it. But yeah, so from
Yeah.
here is when he goes to the thrall
Mhm. Yeah.
to really, punish.
Well, it takes some time because they hold that tower until the
Mhm.
Malazans show up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You're right.
hmm and so it's worth noting too that they were, we get this right from the beginning, like, and just again tragic. They have to hold the city for 5 weeks. They lose it on the third day,
Yeah, I
right?
will say that was
But
if I had to choose a dislike, I do wish the timeline was a little more clear because like at some
Mhm.
point then and we'll talk about them when we get to them, but like Whiskey Jack and
Yeah.
everyone else, they're only a couple leagues outside of Capistan,
Well,
which
so what happens is Ganuz, Paran, and the Bargas, they get there first.
yeah, I know, but like
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
so like how long into this do you think that the bridge burners get there?
I think. Well, I don't know if it takes them a full 5 weeks. It feels like they get there sooner, but
Yeah.
I think that they're probably holding the tower for like a week.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. I think Ganuz, Paran, I think they get there a few weeks ahead of the rest of the Malazans, and I don't know that it takes the Malazans a full 5 weeks to get there.
Yeah.
But
And
but maybe it
from
does.
Yeah,
But
I wish it
yeah.
was just a little. It does feel like there are some time jumps that are a little
Mhm.
unclear. That it could, it could have just been simply as like, in the past, 2 weeks or whatever, as he's thinking, as a
Mhm.
character's thinking or something, just so I know like it's been X amount of time.
Yeah.
Because I guess I also don't know like how far is a league.
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't refreshed my knowledge on the league.
Let's
How
find out.
far
Because at
is the
some
league?
when the
3 miles.
okay, so 3 miles. It says at some point Dujak and Khaled and Brood and them. I think when they kill the captain or whatever, I can't remember what his title was called. When they kill him, they're only a few leagues out. So like let's say 15 miles. But that's like
Yep.
a day, 2 days.
hmm
Let's just be super generous and call it 5 days of travel. That's still under a week. When they were 5 weeks out. So at some point, yeah, weeks go by.
Yeah.
And I just found it not super clear as to like at how long, yeah, before, because yeah, you're right. The bridge burners get there first,
Mhm.
and then because the really the Malazans and stuff never really make it there. They never go in or anything. They make
Mhm.
it like pretty close, and then later they meet outside of Capistan.
Yeah.
Um, but they're close enough
Yeah.
to where like 5 weeks has gone by, or they made really good time, but we just don't really
Yeah.
know.
And like a cursory, I didn't really look at it before, but a cursory Google search, basically a normal, like an army, like I looked up like a medieval army would travel about 2 leagues a day.
Okay,
That's about how far they can
so
travel,
yeah, let's say five
just with
days.
with all of the things. Yeah.
Yeah, which at the end of the day,
Mhm.
right, it doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
It doesn't really matter. I just I found myself a little less grounded than I would have liked in that of
Yep.
like,
I did too.
especially because like that was a huge thing when we first find out. No, they're 5 weeks away, and so me as a
Mhm.
reader, I'm like, so how are we gonna do this? Like,
Yeah.
and we never really get the explanation of
Yeah.
how they do it. We get we get day one, how they win it. Day two, how they win it, and then it's been 5 weeks. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, they did it.
Yeah.
So I do wish that was a little more clear, or just something. And maybe it is. Maybe it's in there, and I just missed it with information overload. But yeah, like when the bridge burners show up, I want to know how long have they been holding? How tired are they? But yeah, I thought it was interesting. I gave myself a little chuckle because on the notes I put SEAL team. I called them SEAL team bridge burners because they
Yeah.
really do come in like a Navy SEALs team.
Yeah.
blown shit up on the
Yeah, well,
outside.
and they're like technically supposed to wait. They're not supposed to go in.
Yeah,
And then Trotz is like, "No, we're going in." and
yeah,
and then Pro's like, "Should we?" And he's like, "Do you?" He's like, "Are you telling me that you want to wait outside?" And Pro's like, "No, I want to
yeah.
go in too."
And this is the first time I think that we see them in this part, right?
Yep.
They show
Yep.
up, they kill a bunch of people, and then they go in.
SEAL Team Trotz.
Yeah, still Team Trots. Yeah, yeah, and kind of really. I mean, again, I prefer it like this. It could have been this huge battle. It's a pretty quick battle. They blow a bunch of people up with their munitions.
Hmm.
And then they go in and they kind of just almost immediately meet up with Gruntle and them on that the like I almost like envision it as like an apartment building, like an apartment complex building that Gruntle and them have been holding, or like a small hotel almost, where it's like a bunch of living quarters, almost like not like a skyscraper, but like multiple levels, and there's like the other thing that this part reminded me of, because the way that Piran like sees the building, there's like piles of bodies up to like, floor 3. It kind of I never saw World War Z, but like how have you seen like the trailer or
Yep.
whatever? Where it's like the zombies all like
I
climbing
mean,
on
I've seen
top
the
of each
movie. Yeah.
other. Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of what
They,
I
they use their own
pictured.
bodies.
Yeah, I kind of
Yep.
pictured that with the tennis guy going up to that like
And what's
building.
Yeah. Well, and I was mentioning this earlier, but I'll just bring them now. Like, it's my Bridget and I listen to these podcasts on World War I, World War II, and just like how transformative that was. I mean, World War I. I mean, France was like the leading world power up until World War I. World War I broke France, and one of the major things they talked about was just like the evolution of technology jumping from the end of the 19th century into the early 1900s was just massive in terms of how Germany sort of changed the use of weaponry. And there's this battle where France is holding a line, and the like then they were they're employing fire, they're using machine guns and everything like that, and they're able to get at one point outflanked because the bodies have piled so high. There's thousands of bodies that have just been cut down by machine guns that they have literally blocked all of their lines of fire
It's crazy.
because it's just bodies, just piles of bodies. They made a wall of bodies.
That's
Uh,
crazy. I can't
and that's
imagine
how they were
like
able to, yeah.
it's just crazy to me. Like I
Mhm.
cannot imagine being, especially yeah. You just think about like
Yeah.
the beaches of Normandy and stuff like these like
Hmm.
20-year-olds that are just like
Yeah.
I mean I would not have the courage. Gotta say it.
Yeah.
Put it on the record. I would not have the courage. Yeah,
Yeah.
which I think a lot of that perspective changes because we learn of history and like we have technology and we can watch things and learn things. So in a way, it's scarier having all that information and then going to do it. But still, like I just war is like such a crazy
Hmm.
thing. So yeah, I can't imagine like seeing a pile of bodies of my comrades or whatever, brethren, and then saying,
Hmm.
"I know what I need to do. Walk up it." And to
Yeah.
try and go do what I need to do. And it's just like,
Hmm.
no,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
It is.
Scary.
And so that is essentially like, I mean, that is essentially the scene. Is like the city is essentially a graveyard. I mean, the city has. I mean, in Kovian's own words, like the city has died.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy. And so yeah, but they were able to make it to him. This really awesome encounter, and we get this first sense of like the liberation of the city in a way. And they are able to then make their way through all the way to the thrall, and at that point, it's really, especially with the Barghast now unleashed in the city. And we get this really cool detail with the Barghast too, where they're like, I can't remember if it was Piran or somebody else was questioning their particular tactics, and because they're not they're trying very hard not to have a pitched battle in the streets. They're
Mm.
trying to like maneuver around them to like force them outside. And no, it was Ukovian who was having this conversation, and so it was brought up like, okay, like, why are you doing that? It's like, well, with the way we bury people, we don't want to drag them all outside, right? It's just like super practical in a way
Yep.
for like their particular people. And but it also just like goes to show something very important, I think, which is just the fact that they can do that just shows the degree to which they have everything under control. And because the Tennis are just they're really bad fighters. There's just so many of them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they just cannot. There's no way they can stand up to like a militant culture like the Barghest.
Hmm.
And so and then they're able to thrall, and the mass council is freed, and people are starting to be released from the tunnels. And it, if we finally get this first sort of scene of the city is finally like liberated, it's it's too late. It's avenged, really, is what it is.
Yeah.
And we get this encounter between Ikovian and Rathfenner,
Yeah, I was
which
gonna say I think we skip over kind because there's scenes with like Gruntle and Picker and
yep.
Piran and Stony, and I think we'll get back to them because I think we continue on the Kovian train. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean I covered the rest of the Kovian. If you want to cover this, you are more
Yeah.
than welcome to.
This was so. There's one big thing other than this that we need to talk about with Kovian, which you brought up, but we can talk about that later when we talk about the way that the Gray Swords start to come back,
Mm.
because there's something really cool I think about Anaster in what we see with the Tennis Scoury, and I really like what happens later with the Tennis Scoury and the Gray Swords for that reason. But we do know that we get this sort of first hint through Anaster of what it means to be Shield Anvil, that Jacobian can, Jacobian can bear the sorrow. And now we get this first encounter, not the first encounter, but we get this encounter with Rathfinner. And, people are getting kind of like freaked out because Kovian, he goes up to Rathfinner and he invokes the Rev right then and there, which he's like technically not supposed to do because he's not the Justice. And then Gruntle's like, "Hey, I'm a mortal sword. Can I do it? I invoked the Rev." And then everyone's like, "I guess." Like that nobody knows, or like, "Is this how it works?" And it's just like, "Nope, this is happening." And so he invokes the Rev in this particular case to inflict punishment. That the commandments of Finner have been broken through this betrayal that we see from Rathfenner in giving up Brucalion and the other Grey Swords. And so he invokes the Red to punish this individual, and we've seen the consequences of this punishment before. And so in this particular punishment, the bearer of the sword, which should be the mortal sword, but in this case it will be a Kovian, slices off in one go both hands of the individual and then cauterizes the wound, which then opens up that individual to be possessed by a god. But the kicker here is that the god who does the possession is supposed to be their god. It's
Yeah,
supposed to be
Fenner.
Finner. And this is what happened with Heberic. We now know that this is how he was punished. And that's why he has tattoos. And why his hands have been cut off, because they invoked the Rev, because he was a priest to Finner.
We gotta talk
They
about
invoked the
that
Rev
too
against him.
because
Yeah.
that was one part I bookmarked because I feel like we gotta talk about that after. So we'll finish this, and then I do want to
Okay.
talk about that more.
But this is okay. So, like in scale of things, okay. First of all, in Deadhouse Gates, when they find the old Simp God and they like rip it to pieces, that was like epic. Okay, this is epic, like plus. Okay, so he encounters Rathfenner, and you can already start to see like the bleeding heart of Mercy of just like I recognize that I'm about to open this person up to possession, and Finner is gone. So we have literally no idea what's about to happen to this person, but justice has to be served. And so he carries this through, and sure enough, Rathfinner, right, does get possessed, but because he gets possessed by a creature, well, presumably of malice, and it's tearing apart his soul, right? And he's like visibly, it's almost like the scene from the last season of Stranger Things, where he's like almost like visibly like being tortured and crushed from the just sheer pain of what this god is inflicting upon him. Unnamed god, by the way, old unnamed god,
Yeah, they
right?
keep mentioning like alien,
Yeah.
alien.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, because Jacobian Shield Anvil like bears the grief, he sees this and he becomes intimately aware. He's like, justice has been served, right? Like the punishment has been inflicted. And this is what I just love about his character. And so then he goes over to Rathfenner. He picks up, like cradles Rathfenner, who's like deteriorating, like literally deteriorating. And he just looks into him and he's just like, give me your pain.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this moment, and this is like, again, part of the significance of like what we see with Inaster and the Tuscalori, where Rathfenner rejects Eckovian, but for a completely different reason, which is just so cool. And it like shows in some sense the redemption. Like, and again, you know, my Catholic colors are showing out, but I love the concept of redemption. I truly believe that we live in a world of redemption, and we see this moment of redemption because like Jovian, almost like a Messiah character, is like coming here to like relieve him of his burden, and he's saying no because he recognizes how terrible of a burden he has and how much like pain and grief that there is, and he doesn't want Akovian to take it because Akovian would have to take it all on his own soul. He can't give it over to Finner. And Akovian's just like, no, and just pushes through that and goes in anyway. And just the guy's like life unfolds for Akovian, and he can see everything about what brought this man to this moment, right? All the different factors that played into it, how he was raised and how he was taught and how people betrayed him in the past and how he was taught that this is the way that things need to be. And he sees all of that and he takes that all on himself. And then finally comes like face to face with this creature that's like inflicting this pain. And he stands there to be the shield, right? To free Rathfenner from this pain. And then sees this thing and then realizes, right, how much pain this thing is under from the worlds that have died, the realms that have died in this thing's past, and how it's in some ways maybe the like it may be the last of its kind. Like all of its followers, all of its history is all just forgotten. And he just looks at it, and rather than walking away, he's just like, "No, I will take your pain."
And you get your pain taken, and you get your pain taken.
And he knows, like, it's just like this moment of like to take on to take on the pain of an infinite being cannot be done by like a mortal finite being, right? But he's going to anyway, even though it will like literally shred his soul. But he's like this is who I am. This is what I must do, right? And then once again, we see this moment of like that effect of mercy where that creature rejects Eckovian and actually like ultimately fights Eckovian to free itself, not for its own sake, but to keep Eckovian from dying under the sheer weight of its pain, right? And like to spare him that mercy. And this is also just like a really like cool theme we see throughout this. Like we saw the same theme with Animander Rake and Whiskey Jack. That there's this moment where Animander they have to they it comes later and we'll probably hit on it, but they need to execute some of the prisoners, and so Animander chooses to do this, but Whiskey Jack can't let it happen, and so Whiskey Jack has to be the one to execute them instead, so they're not killed by Rake's sword.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just having to kill unarmed people. I mean, even though there are soldiers from their side, but killing unarmed prisoners of war just like rips his soul,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then there's that realization of like, oh, like the reason why Animander didn't want me to stop him was because it needed to be done, and he was willing to spare us the pain of having to do it, right? And so like we see that with Covian is just like he wants to spare everyone's pain to take it upon himself
It's like three
instead,
people trying to
regardless.
hold open the door for each other.
Yeah,
But like
yeah.
it like weirdly like which you know yeah, like on paper I feel like all it's happening so much that I'm
Yeah.
just like on paper it's like oh come on, but like it works so
Yep.
well, it's super
Yeah.
believable, you root for it, like
Yep.
it's awesome.
Yeah. And um now like, there's definitely like several things were going through my head, but oddly enough, one of the things that came through my head, which just it was one of those scenes that like I had a real emotional impact for me, was I don't this is completely it sounds almost tangential, but did you ever watch like the show Hannibal?
Mm-mm.
Did you ever watch that show? There's so in Hannibal, the main character who is essentially like the detective, he's put at the forefront because the idea is that he just has this weird capacity to be able to empathize with sociopaths and serial killers.
Mm.
He can just sort of understand the reasoning, and there's this like very visceral moment in the book, or in the series, sorry, is where he he's trying. I can't remember if it was particularly one of Hannibal's crimes or if it was one of the other serial killer's crimes, but he has this moment where like all the stars align and he can fully understand what drove this person to do what they do. But then to imagine, to imagine that, to imagine him being in that same position, it like nearly breaks him,
Mm.
because it's just so painful to like imagine like the horror that this person can inflict and that they themselves are enduring by inflicting that on others as well. And it's just like he can't like all of a sudden being with that empathy, he can't stand it because he doesn't want to know these things, he doesn't want to experience these things, he doesn't want to imagine these things. And it's like we had this moment with Akovian where like after he's wrestled, he's sitting there and like now you understand what he is. And he's sitting in the middle of a dead city. I mean, hundreds of thousands of lives of just that ended of grief. And he's just like, no, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's going to do this for the entire city to like bear the weight of a dead city on his shoulders, which is just like redeems a betrayer, wrestles with an alien god, and then cleanses the grief, right? Bears the sorrow of an entire city. Which is
Basically,
just like,
this was another thing. I'm curious to see how you
yeah,
interpreted this, but like he basically dies doing it, and then
mhm,
Perron just somehow, just says like, "Wake up, bro," and he does,
mhm,
and he wakes up.
yeah.
So any insight into that, or just thoughts about how Perron did that?
Yeah. So my interpretation was because when he takes on the weight of the city, I mean, he's nearly spent at this point, but there's a really important moment when he takes on the weight of the city, where he sees what's happened, right? And there's it was great because there's recognition of like these aren't subjects of Fenner, right? But they could be subjects of anybody, any god they've prayed to, they've been loyal to, and so he makes this universal call. He's like, gods see me, right? Like, witness me, right? But
Yeah,
he's like, God see me. He's like, these are your
they
subjects.
literally say
I
witness
will
in
be
this
your
book.
mercy.
That is a
Yeah,
thing in this book. They say
yeah,
witness. I
yeah,
can't remember when it was, but I remember seeing it. They say witness. It might be
yeah,
around this moment. I can't
yeah.
remember.
And he's like, and he's essentially going to be in a way like the shield anvil for every one of those gods. Like, see me, witness me, bring on the burdens, the sorrow of your people. Will you stand behind me? And none of them do. Like none of these gods, as far as we know, come to his aid. And so the way I saw it was like he chooses to still to still take on their sorrows, their burdens, even though it will kill him, right? But my thought was, because basically because it's Piran who brings it back, was that he makes this call to the pantheon to support him, who don't respond to the call, but Piran is the master of the deck. So in a way, he's an arbiter for the pantheon. Like he's a mortal arbiter for the pantheon, manifest in the mortal realm. And so, in order for Jacovian to pass on, Hood has to take him, and Piran essentially just forbids it. He's like, "No,
Mm,
you're not taking this guy, not today."
which is also awesome.
And I,
Yeah,
yeah, and
because
I
that's
think
really
Hood
what it just seemed
acknowledges
like.
it.
It's just
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, but before we move too far from the hand severing, I want to talk about that part. Even though we learn about this later, first of all, did you have like I remember reading like
Mhm.
and then they laid him down and stretched out his hands and I was like, oh shit, like they're gonna cut
Yeah,
his hands off like Heberick. Like
yeah,
it just was a
that's
really
exactly what I
cool
was thinking.
it was a really cool moment. So okay,
Yeah.
so later on in the book, in this part, Whiskey Jack and Rake are talking. And so I'm just gonna read some of it. I don't know how long I'm gonna read, but we kind of here, I'll just read it. So it says, Fenner's lost to us, Rake said. Whiskey Jack says, lost? What do you mean? Torn from his realm, now standing the mortal earth. How? There was a grim smile in Rake's tone as he explained, by a Malazan, a once priest of Fenner, a victim of the Rev. So Heberick. And so we now find out he was a victim of the Rev. And Whiskey Jack says, which means? And he says, his hands were ritually severed. The power of the Rev then sends those hands to the hooves of Fenner himself. The ritual must be the expression of purest justice, but this one wasn't. So wrongfully, we find out Hebrick's hands were wrongfully severed.
Mhm.
Rather, there was a perceived need to reduce the influence of Fenner, and in particular that high priest, by agents of the Empire, likely the Claw. You mentioned the discouraging of cults within the army. Perhaps that was a factor. My knowledge is not complete, alas. Certainly the high priest's penchant for historical analysis was another. He had completed an investigation that concluded that the Empress Lysine, in fact, failed in her assassination of the Emperor and Dancer. Granted, she got the throne she so badly wanted, but neither Kellenvad nor Dancer actually died. Instead, they ascended. So we now find out that Hebrick's hands, they invoked the Rev,
Mhm.
but we now found out is like likely the Claw doing it because Hebrick found out that Kellenvad and Dancer weren't actually dead, which is
Mhm.
it just and they're doing it to
Yeah.
bring down the influence of Fenner, and just like
Yep.
all of that is just like I just thought that was so cool. Of like, dang, we
Yeah.
really got way more information
Mhm.
than I thought, and then it goes wrong because Hebrick, there's like the chaotic energy in the Warrens, and when he touches that jade statue or whatever, that's what actually like pulls Fenner into the
Mhm.
mortal realm, which is just
Mhm.
crazy. Like,
Yeah.
how do you
And,
think
and
up
then,
that
like,
shit? Like,
yeah, I know. And it's just like, but then like we're looking back, it's like, oh, it's kind of making sense because like he's got the tattoos, which means that even though the Rev was inappropriate applied, Fenner's still possessed because it's a high priest of Fenner. And
yep.
for some reason or another, Fenner still looks fondly, and we actually see that in Dennis Gates, looks fondly upon Hebrick. But then now Hebrick in a way is like a mortal gateway to Fenner now.
And
And
he
then so he
also
touches this and like draws Fenner through him, like into the mortal realm.
at some point doesn't he
Yeah.
revoke or is that the right word, revoke, or like uh what's it called when you like stop believing in a god?
Yeah, I mean, he effectively like rejected, right?
Yeah,
He gave up his religion.
Hebrick does, which is also interesting
Yeah.
because like he was wrongfully it wasn't Fenner's fault really. So yeah, just an interesting storyline that I'm maybe it's like technically we if we never got any more of that, we would have enough to get what happened. But I kind of hope we do get
Mhm.
more of it. I mean, we are going to get more Hebrick. I just don't know if it's going to
Yep.
be that side of him really
Mhm.
wrestling with religion, or like I think we're going to also get some more of like what happens with Fenner.
Mhm.
It's implied in this part though that like Fenner going to get rocked on the
Yeah.
mortal world. Like he's not long for
Mhm.
this world. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that whole thing was just like I just thought it was so cool. Of
Yeah.
like yeah, with Hebrick in the hands and everything.
Mhm. It's really amazing how this takes place right after Gardens, but yet it's like Deadhouse Gates. It's just really showing more and more of Deadhouse Gates,
Yeah.
right? So it's like again, it's like this is happening on the other side. It's like in parallel, and so this is not a direct. This book is
Sorry,
not a
just
direct successor to the
Discord
Best
just
Gates.
broke,
Yeah,
and yeah, you went
yeah.
super slow mo. It was great.
Oh, sorry. Zack Snyder's at it again, man. Ooh.
Well.
Um, but like it's like Deadhouse. It like feels like Deadhouse Gates is the first like the book before this in a way, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just it keeps showing more and more of that book,
This is like a
and
companion piece to that,
so
where
yeah,
Gardens really does feel like it almost feels like a one shot to introduce
yep,
you to the world, and then yeah, these two feel like
yep,
they really are companion pieces to each
yep.
other.
It's the classic like TTRPG one shot to see if your friends might actually want to
Yeah,
keep playing.
it really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I am glad because I think I was maybe under the impression that w- this was going to be this similar to Dead House in the sense that Dead House wasn't that attached to Gardens, that this was in turn not going to be attached to Dead House, and we were just going to get kind of like three almost standalone books that the rest of the books then tie all together. But this really, and up to this point, it really was that. We didn't really know what's happening. At some point, Piran is told about his sisters, and that was the only mention of Dead House Gates up to this point. But now, even with such little information, there's a lot of tie-in now. We know where we're at in the timeline. We know
Mm-hmm.
what's happening. We finally get some answers to things that happen in Dead House, which is great because there were. I mean, I think that's just going to be this series in general. Like, I finished a book, I'm like, I, I loved it, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I get it for like
Yeah.
80% of it. So like, it's nice we're
Yeah.
finally getting some really satisfying
Yep.
answers, or even just partial answers, I guess. But just yeah,
Mhm.
it's just fun to make those connections and tie it all together. But yeah, that scene. I mean, I, I other than the end of Dead House Gates, I do think that might be my favorite scene of Malazan so far. Like, it just was awesome and so
Mhm.
unexpected. Just so
Yep.
unexpected because yeah, I'm used to fantasy where like right we set up these bad people and when they finally get their justice, it's like hell yeah, burn them at the how's our fantasy how's our
Mhm.
author gonna just painfully kill this person, make him
Mhm.
suffer, and then Steven Erickson's like actually we're gonna do this instead. We're gonna show them, grace and mercy, and I'm
Mhm.
just like, hell yeah, yeah. This is what I want now, forever, for
Yeah.
every bad
Yeah.
guy, because it's so much more satisfying. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just like nothing will make me love a character more than that. Even though I don't want it until I get it. It's just something about it. It's just like I love it. I loved it.
Mhm. Yep.
So very cool.
It was. It's such a powerful scene. Yeah, I really like we said earlier. Like for me, this made it feel like this is like the story of the COVID. Like just in the same way with like with Duker and with Coltrane and like the Chain of Dogs. Like you see it through Duker's eyes, but like it really is in some sense like the Chain of Dogs, like the story, right? Um, and now it just feels like Capustan. Like even though it's really for them in a way, it was just like, hey, we're going to be going in that direction, so maybe we can save them from a siege or something. But now it's just like, though, this is the story of Sokovian,
Yeah. I mean,
right?
the whole time, it's like we know as readers, this is not the end of the book, obviously. And
Yep.
we know that the Panyan Seer isn't here. We know they're going to have to go to Coral. But this felt like the climax of the book. It felt like no part of me during this was thinking about, like, what's going to happen next. I just was like, this is it. Like,
Yep.
yeah. And that's what's so fun about Malazan. It's like he's so good at making every part feel that way.
Yep.
Um, that it's just nice reading a book where the payoff isn't the last 35 pages. Like we're getting some serious payoff here.
Shots
Because
fired.
yeah, not to mention any names, but because there is a lot of setup in this book. The first two parts
Yeah.
are a lot of setup. Satisfying setup for sure, and I loved reading it. But like we're getting some significant payoff as a reader. I
Hmm.
think halfway through the book, which is awesome. Uh,
Yep.
but yeah, so much more happens.
Yeah.
But really,
So.
that does feel
Yeah.
like that is the climax of
Mhm.
Itkovian's part. Other than, I guess, do we want to just continue with that kind of what happens with the Gray Swords,
Yeah.
and his position and all that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should. So, because it'll wrap back around because of the wolves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very significant. By the way, I mean, first of all, if Sokovian had died, I think for all of us it would have been really sad, but it would have been like it would have been totally understandable, right?
Yeah.
It's like yeah, like he gave his life to bear the sorrows, right? And Paran is like no, like not today. You can't take his soul. It stays here. And but I think that it's significant and clearly so that he did die, and I think that it really makes sense that he cannot be the shield anvil anymore, right? Like he is that was it. Like he did it. Like he's peaked. Like it's just I don't know how to say it. Like he's that's it. And so it's just like this like death is a transformation. Like he in a way he cannot be shield anvil anymore. And the gray swords are devastated and they need to rebuild. And I think it's really awesome too that in this particular story, the vast majority of the gray swords that survive, certainly the ones that are with the Kovian, are actually mostly the Capustan recruits, most of
Mm-hmm.
whom are women, because they wanted to fight but they could not fight in like any of the armed militia in Capustan. So the gray swords were the only one who were willing to take them. When we saw that with like the Chain Kamala and things like that, where that particular venture saw many of the Capustan recruits going on that adventure, and so they've been very much like honed through battle, right? Really, really in the heat of battle through all of this. And so now it's the small ragtag group of Capustan recruits that have to reform the Grey Swords. And so, Kovian needs to figure out how to do that. And it dawns on him, right, that like if Fenner is gone and the Grey Swords are going to survive, they can no longer be the militants, like the militant group of Fenner. And he looks upon Gruntle, who, by the way, like we totally skipped past this, but like before the whole thing with Wrath Fenner, Paran was, I mean, he knew it would kill him and like kill Ugovian, and he was like, hey, Trake needs a shield anvil, right? Like you can come over, and he's like, no, I can't do that, right? And then there's that moment again of like, hey, the Grey Swords can join Trake, and he's like, no, they can't. They're not. You already have your militia. This is not the militant group, and so it sort of dawns on him that, and I want to learn more about these wolves too. I think that's what's going to happen a lot. So I'm going to throw out that prediction early, and we'll come back to it. But he realizes that there are older gods that are still out there, gods of war that have been forgotten or long lost. But the 1/2 gods in particular were the mated wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And so he seeks out seers that worship these wolves to see if this is something that they can do, that if they can become, the Grey Swords can become the militant group of these old gods that have nearly been forgotten. And so it just, again, providentially happens to be the case that he's selecting 2 mated gods that are coming back, right? That have been separated for centuries, maybe millennia, and are coming back because of other events that are happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They finally found each other, and they have a new sort of reason to operate now in the mortal realm. And so they are now very interested in sort of building out their soldiers. And I think, like, while we didn't really mention this earlier, I think it is very significant that you have Paran being the master of the deck and the House of Chains selecting its members, and now these other houses also doing the same. Because in addition to, first of all, us just learning more about the Pantheon, I think this is very much signaling to us that the Pantheon is preparing for war. Right?
Which
Like
makes sense, yeah.
why are the houses gathering their soldiers for war? Because they know, like, with the House of Chains, especially if Paran permits the House of Chains to join the Pantheon, then, and they've kind of said it, it's like it's gonna be a fight. Like they're going to duke over who has authority where and to what degree, and they're going to try to destroy this house. And so it's going to be essentially a civil war. And so these houses are gathering their soldiers, and so now these Grey Swords, they're going to become the militant group of these 2 wolves, who's I'm forgetting their names all of a sudden.
It is Tog and Fanderay.
Tog and Fanderay. And so the captain that serves under and I could be misremembering, but I think the captain who serves with alongside Ikovian, who rode with him the entire time, and or was the final captain who organized all the groups for their attack on the tower. She becomes the shield anvil, and I think the messenger becomes the destriant. And then,
which, by the way, I want to note that so I have their names. So you're right. I think the Destriant, whose name is Valbara, she was the messenger from Wrath Fenner that invoked the Rev, and then Norrell, who he basically, like, at the last second is like, you're the shield, because I think she says Norrell, which, by the way, is the recruit, if my memory is right. When they first go out of Capustan and fight the Kachain Chamal demons or whatever, she's the new recruit. And so he puts her. There's really important information we find out during this scene. One, she says, I think she says something along the lines of, like, you should be the mortal sword. And the seers are like, no, there already is a mortal sword, but we don't know who. Which
That's
is
right.
Really interesting, and we'll talk about that maybe more in predictions or whatever, because I do have some thoughts.
I mean, I'm assuming it's Talk the Younger. That was
I'm assuming it's Talk the Younger too. But Shield Anvil. So she's like, okay, well then you can just be the Shield Anvil. He says, no, you're going to be the Shield Anvil, and it's locked in. So Norrell
Yeah.
The recruit is the shield anvil. Velbara, the messenger, is the destriant. I'm pretty sure I don't have those backwards, but if I do, then it's just the opposite.
Mm.
That's what I wrote down. And
Mhm.
Itkovian is not taking a position.
Yep.
And I think also in that moment, he says, here's what you're going to do. Like, it's immediately after. He says, you're going to recruit from the Tenascowry.
Yep.
And those are going to be that's going to be your militia.
Yep. And so this, I like absolutely loved that this happened. That it was like, no, we're gonna recruit from the Tiniscowry because of what happened with Annister. And I know it's kind of subtle, and like there's a degree to which I'm reading into it and things like that. But that whole thing with with Annister is, there is an extent to which when your life is so scarred by trauma and pain and horror, and that you're someone who's like inflicting right this trauma and horror, that you are compelled, like that individual is compelled to reject redemption
Mm,
for the sole reason that if redemption is possible, it makes it so much worse what they did,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
there was always the chance they could have turned around, right? What Anaster has done to abate the children of the dead seed and the Tenascowry, to lead them to horrors, to devastate cities, to go into cannibalism, to the way that they've survived, right? Like, it is so much easier for them to live under the belief that life is meaningless, there is no hope, there is no redemption, and that what they do, it just doesn't ultimately matter, right? And so to encounter a shield amble who can take upon himself that despair, right? To give him the hope of redemption, it is like anathema, right? Like an Asher cannot permit it, because then he is now a horror, a monster, right? Like he is now all the things he can't stand to be,
Yeah.
right? And so the idea of like them going out to Tenascowry, they're going to be just like that. But now imagine that they find Tenascowry who are willing to admit to what they have done, right? These things that they've done, but to give into hope, like to have the courage to give into a hope of redemption, right? I mean, these are cannibals. They've done horrible things, certainly. I mean, they also come from a very traumatic background as well. But for them to make that decision in a way shows that they're worth the redemption, right? That they are like in a way should like they really should be a member of a Grace Order recognition, and that's very much like the sentiment that we get from the Shield Anvil and from the Destriant,
Yeah.
right? Is that
Because they
like
are
for
really
those that
sorry. I was just saying because
yeah,
they really are just victims of circumstance. The
yeah,
majority of the Tenascowry is like they are purely doing what they need to survive
mhm,
because of what the Panion's done to their homes
mhm,
and everything.
yep,
So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. This like forgiveness. Um,
mhm,
another cool connection with talk though, because yeah, I mean I don't think it's maybe we are wrong, but it does seem like that is going to be what's going to happen. Is that he has already had ties to the Tenascowry in this book.
mhm.
When he joins them, and then kind of I don't know, I can't remember if he becomes like a captain, but he becomes like a lieutenant of an
Yeah,
Aster
I
at
think
one
that's right.
point. So some of these Tenascowry will probably recognize him as
Yep.
this like voiceless being who, when he shows up to lead them, will probably at that point then speak. And I don't know, it's almost like a not like a prophet kind of thing, but like yeah, like something cool like that when they finally hear him speak, and he's now their like leader for good.
Mhm.
Well, I guess we don't know if it's for good.
Right.
We don't know the about Tog and Fanderay, but we're probably thinking they're going to be fighting against the cripple god.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but yeah, cool,
Yep.
super
Well,
cool. Yeah, just not at all how I thought any of any of that was going
yeah.
to go, like at all.
Yeah.
Um, I
And
think that kind of
the last
wraps
thing I
up
was just
the
going to mention,
yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, and this kind of will go into Piran, but we will basically see because there'll be several different scenes with the other characters where we see, now these elected members for Ta'agan. Finneray, but we will see like those like these several subtle scenes where you see Kovian and you see the Destrate and you see the Shield Anvil, and there's subtle interactions that do kind of tell us that the Shield Anvil, the new one, is kind of following into their role. Like I remember there's a scene where we like see that she's like visibly like shedding tears, and it's I believe like really meant to convey that like she is now herself really coming to understand what it means to be a shield animal.
Yeah.
And even Akovian's just like he in a way regrets it. He even says it because while he would want that for her, she doesn't have a choice like he
Yeah.
did. He got to rise to the occasion, so to speak, or not rise to the occasion, but to make the volunteer choice with knowledge of what it was being asked of him, whereas she circumstantially had to do it. I mean, because it was needed,
Yeah.
but without the real knowledge or coaching of what she was taking upon
Well,
herself.
so I kind of want to speak to that because
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, she is the one that voices what a shield anvil is to Anaster in the tower, which
Mhm.
makes me think. So I think that to a degree she does have an idea,
Yeah,
but like it's one of those things that's like you can't understand it until you do it. But it is interesting that
yeah, I
like
think that's fair.
generally, this is information that is known, maybe just to
Yep.
people within the organizations,
Hmm.
but it's not like. It's not like Covian was withholding information from the Gray
Right.
Swords or anything. I think that
Yep.
they know what it is. So she
Yep.
knows what she's stepping into, but doesn't know.
Right.
Um,
And I think this is also one of those hindsight biases thing too, is I bet, to a degree, like Akovian did not know that to the same extent,
sure,
right?
yeah, it is one of
When
those
he
like you
became
just
Shinra.
can't.
Yeah.
How could you?
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly. And but now that he does and has experienced all of that, there's like that element of like I wish there was a way for me, for them to really know like what I know. But this is their role. Like there's an element of sacredness to it. Um, and and like she like I mean for all intents and purposes she's clearly the right person for it, so to speak, as far as we know. And so it's yeah very exciting. But yeah,
yeah. I love too that she's
this
like the recruit that decides because
yeah,
after that very first battle, he's like, "Look, I understand. I release you. You don't have to be part of this." And she's like, "No, I'm staying." Like,
mhm,
and it just makes sense that she's there through the end, and even though she's a newer recruit, she's like earned that title with her actions, and I think that that was really cool.
mhm,
But yeah, so we still have a couple threads we got to go through. That was one.
mhm. Yeah.
So really the
Two
our
technically we got Gruntle in there,
that's
so
true. We did
we
we did get Gruntle in
yeah.
there. So our other big ones. The nice thing is that's the it felt like the biggest one. So we've
Yep.
got Silver Fox that we need to go over. Silver Fox in the I'm never gonna remember how they pronounce it. The Mibby
Maybe the
Mobby
maybe is how it's pronounced.
Mibby
Yeah, it's like maybe, but maybe. So try to say maybe, but believe you're Australian when you say it.
Mibby, yeah. Chicken out of the Bobby. So
No.
yeah, so we got kind of their storyline with the gathering and all that,
Yeah.
which and we can decide which one we want to do first. We've got Piran, and then we've got Quick Ben. And Quick Ben, we can kind of also just do Buke, and then obviously that involves Boshlin and Corbel Broach as well.
Mm.
And then last we've got Talk, which we can then loop into I mean we barely get any Lady Envy or anything, but it is important that we got to talk about that at the end. And maybe we leave Talk for last because that where this book leaves off with Lady Envy and them is really the lead into the last part in theory. So yeah, maybe to me I know you were talking about how the wolves would kind of work to with Tog and them to transition into Talk, but I think maybe we leave Talk for last,
Okay. Yep.
or
'Cause
or
there
just
is,
leave that part, or just leave that
yeah.
part for last.
Well, because there is one other just epic scene in this whole thing that we can go to
Yeah, let's
just to
do it.
make sure we get all the epic scenes off.
Yeah, do it.
So when one of the last sort of interactions that we see with the Grey Swords is this gathering of officials. And so an important group of those officials, right, is going to be Kaladin Brood, Calor, right? And so they've been on this march, right, to join in. Animander Rake and Moonspot appeared. They joined in, right? And they're all on this sort of direction. And one of the things that's kind of fascinating about this journey is it could be like, in some sense, like really boring, but there's this sort of creeping element of Silver Fox's growth, her hardness of heart, and what's happening with the Maybe and her nightmares.
Mm.
And people are trying to figure out what to do to alleviate these nightmares. We see a growing romance between Whiskey Jack and Carlette. Um, and this kind of leads to some headbutting basically along the journey. And one of the most significant ones in sort of classic fashion is as things start to really, the temperature really starts to rise and things are really blowing over. You have, lo and behold, Krupp just basically comes in. He's like, "Don't fret, everybody, right? Bullet Krupp will be able to fix all these things for you." And so for me, this was like the other epic scene because it really just like set the tone in a way, where you 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 have these I can't okay I'm trying to remember who said it, but who had the ability to recognize that Krupp might be like a genius of all geniuses.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's when Whiskey Jack and Do Jack are talking,
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, I think it might be
yeah,
Whiskey Jack. Whiskey Jack is just saying like he might be the smartest man to exist.
yeah, yeah.
It's just like, and
Yeah,
Do Jack's like, how, like,
no, yeah.
why?
And this is just like it's just cracking me up because it's just but like a part of you is just like he is like really clever
Yeah,
and really sly, and he's just like working everything behind the scenes, and he's clearly putting on a charade like with how he behaves and everything, and of course this actually gets confirmed later by Akovian who takes one look at Crop and it's just like, who the hell are you and why are you the most important person here?
yeah,
Like, which is just really cool to see. And but yeah, but there's this epic scene where everything is like it's very clear, like they know Capustan's fallen, they know they're marching to like relieve Capustan, and there's this brooding thing going on with Silver Fox, and they're just it's not clear how they're going to be able to resolve all of these issues. And it finally hits the forefront, and I believe part of this becomes from this realization as they roll through the layers, right, of their strategy of like, it clearly is not just Capustan, it's clearly not Coral, it's clearly not just the Panion Domain, and it's not even the Jagut tyrant that sits behind this, but it is more than that. And that realization sets in of like, no, this is not just a war for a single place, for a single city, for a single country, for a single nation or empire. This is a war that is going to involve everything, the Warrens, the Pantheon, the entirety of existence. This is a war ultimately with a god, with the chained god or the crippled god. And that is who orchestrates that everything. And it sort of sets in of like, how in the world are we going to be able to face this? And Kruppa's like, don't worry, don't fret. Kruppa's got everything handled. And Kaladin Brood just, or sorry, Kaladin Brood just
yeah.
like loses his shit
Hmm.
for the first time.
He's like the
And it was
Muppet
just like,
Chef,
oh,
where like
yeah,
steam's coming out of his
yeah,
ears,
yeah,
and he's over
yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah, and I was like in the car when I was listening to this particular part, and I like jacked up the volume, and I was like, "What the is
Yeah.
happening here? This is crazy," and I just oh my god, the writing on it was just so great. Where you get this like last accusation from Kaladin Bruin, who's just like, "If you are going to talk this talk, you need to show me right now. You need to explain to me right now why it is that you can have so much confidence you're going to do this." And then, of course, Kruppa in classic fashion has got to be like, "Woe is me that you would not, trust in me." And like that's Calibur just like, no, it just pulls out the hammer, and for the first time we see him, he actually just uses the hammer, slams it on the ground right at Krupp's feet. He's just like, "No, you're not going. We're not doing this. You are going to prove it to me right now." He slams his hammer with all of his force, with so much force that it literally changes the entirety of the
Yeah, it
landscape for
creates
like
a mountain.
miles.
Yeah.
It creates a whole new mountain range, right? I mean, it just splits the earth. Like this massive army is getting like rolled over by earth, right? And like they're put into like the earth is like literally breaking and fracturing along like whole new lines, like whole new tectonic lines, and like people are getting like covered in dirt, they're falling into cavities, people are getting bones broken, like it's just this massive devastation that spreads. And as the dust settles, like there's two islands, and one is Caladebrud and the other one is Krupp, who's just like patting the sweat and dust like off of his face.
Oh yeah,
It
it's
was just
so
like,
good.
was that really necessary?
Yeah,
Like it's just
it's so good. But yeah, another important part happens too is in that in these fractured like veins of earth or whatever, they see blood.
yeah.
And so that is their kind of like confirmation of like the Warrens are under attack.
Mm.
Cruel,
Yep.
his bloodlines or veins or whatever we want to
Well, it's
call it.
definitely Burn, and they know Burn is dying, right? That's
Yes,
the
yep,
yeah,
you're right. Burn.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's confirmed to
So
them
it
that
kind of
Burn is
clears it
dying, and
up, and
so
yeah,
mhm.
Krupp. Yeah, it's so yeah. I mean, I just I because I think there are some people that don't like Krupp. Maybe I
Yeah.
misunderstood. Maybe I'm confusing with a different character. But I thought when I was reading Gardens, I would see often that there are some people that really hate
Hmm.
Krupp. I just don't know
I love
how.
him.
How can you
Yeah.
hate? How can you hate him? He's hilarious. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, he's so good. Yeah, and like the
Hmm.
final very important meeting, he's like stuffing his face at like the buffet and shit. Like, yeah, I mean, like, and I think at this point we know, like, I don't know if there's a single other character that I'm like they're gonna be in the whole series, but Krupp certainly is. I mean, probably Piran. I think there are very few, but like Krupp, we now know is like the. I mean, he's the smartest. He's probably like the strongest. Like he's just the ultimate guy. Like,
Yeah. Well, and, like, I mean, the way that Akovian lays it out too is essentially he lays it out as if Krupp is the prodigy that an elder god found and came to a point in which he surpassed the elder god. That's the way he lays it out. Right? Like
yeah,
he's like the
crazy.
only mortal like capable of achieving this,
Yeah,
which is just yeah,
crazy.
like yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And I think that there's again it's not and it's also not just meant to be like super anime, although it really does feel that way, I will say. There's just like so many scenes. Yeah, like the Yakovian thing, I was like, you could not get more anime than just constantly introducing a bigger thing and then having your character be like, you
Yeah,
too.
the quick bend part in this part also gave
Yeah,
me some anime vibes of like
yeah,
all the Warrens. Like I'm gonna get them all
yeah,
now.
yeah,
We'll talk about that too. But yeah, that part
yeah,
also was like power up. But
yeah,
like I
yeah,
don't care.
exactly.
Like I love it. I it doesn't even.
I did too.
It's crazy because like it doesn't even feel even after feeling like not watching the scene, but like that's what
Mm,
feels like reading that scene.
mm,
It still doesn't. It still it doesn't feel uh like a Superman or something where it's just like,
mm.
oh, he's just gonna beat everything that's thrown at him, no problem. Like it does still feel like things will go wrong and can go wrong and will continue to go wrong. It's gonna be a battle. It doesn't feel
Yeah,
like the power levels just too much or anything.
yeah. Well, and I was just saying because like the what happens with Silver Fox, I think that's an important contrast because we get a moment with Silver Fox where Crop, well, McDuff feels like he's not in control anymore. Like he doesn't actually know. The feeling interpretation I got is he doesn't actually know what's going to happen next with Silver Fox. Right? He needs to start sort of
Yeah.
planning around the possibilities. And I think he has plans in place, but it's not going the way he wanted it to go.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he
Yeah.
had some plans, but yeah, they're not going out the exact way. But yeah, I think the moment actually that they realize that Krupp is the mastermind with Dujek and Whiskey Jack is when they kind of realize that everything that happened in Darujistan was a
Hmm.
result of him. I
Yep.
think they realized that, and then Whiskey Jack says something like, "He may just be the smartest man," or something like that. And Dude Jack's like, "No, please, anybody but Krupp." Yeah, it's a really, it's a great moment. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm trying to think what else happens with. I think well, there is more talk about like with the parlays and stuff, but really that's kind of like what the plans are going forward. And so maybe I think that's another thing we can talk about towards the end as a segue and leading into the last part. But there was another part that in the second parlay uh, where they're meeting outside of Capustan with everybody that I thought was cool with Brood's hammer, in
Yep.
which Rathburn comes up and it's just like, "You're a traitor," like,
Mhm.
Burn gave you a job and you're refusing to do it or whatever, just like making accusations. He's like, "All right, here, you hold the hammer." And she's like, "Thank you, I
Yeah.
will." And then, I mean, like, it's basically kind of like a Thor's hammer, where it literally just
Yeah.
immediately snaps her wrists like they're
Yeah.
twigs. And then after that, he's like, "Actually, Byrne gave me permission to kind of like solve the problem in a third option, because up to this
Yeah.
point we didn't know that, and so we got the revelation that like Byrne has given him permission for a third, an option C, which is to kind of like figure out another way." Which is cool. I thought that was really cool. And then they
Mm.
repair her
Yeah.
wrists and everything, and it's
Yeah.
just like a tut tut
Yep.
tut. Um,
Yep.
have you learned
Yeah.
your lesson
He's the
now?
one who
And
does it too. He takes some stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that now again, this is me speculating. They don't say this in the book, but just kind of reading into it, there's an interaction with Piran and Gruntle and Quick Ben that really sat on my really sat with me when they're discussing what Piran is going to do about the House of Chains, and they talk about why it is that the Master of the Deck has to be immortal. Like
Mm,
it can't be another member of the Pantheon. It has to be a mortal person who becomes the master of the deck. And that really that really struck me as like that is really interesting in this world that we have very significant people who are being elected by the pantheon, but they're mortals. They're not like demigods like you'd find in like, Greek mythology or things like that. They're just mortal people. I mean, they're exceptional in their own rights, but in their own ways, but they are mortal people. And that got me thinking with Kaladin Brood. Now, Kaladin Brood is obviously a very special individual, but I do wonder, and I think that there is a degree to which the reason why Byrne gave him the hammer and the reason why Byrne has faith in him to find a third option, because I think she grieves for both options that she sees as being inevitable, right? That
mm,
either she dies and everything dies, or everything dies so that she may live. I think she agrees with both options, and I think that there is to an extent where, because of her grief, but also because of her weakness to the crippled god, I don't know that she could do it. Like I really wonder. Like I think if she were the one who had the
mm.
choice, I don't know that she could make it.
So you think that's why she gave that power to someone else?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
mean that makes
I think
sense.
yeah, and I think that there's a degree, and I think back to like the alien who Ikarian encountered, like or Kovian encountered, was like if she were to take on like that much pain and that much guilt and that much shame, she would live with it for eternity. Whereas any mortal who dies, right, the universal weight of their decision will be unburdened from them when they pass through Hood's gate,
Mm, mm-hmm.
right? Regardless of who Hood is, which Hood is not a very nice person for the most part,
Yeah.
but that is like the promise, so to speak, of Hood's gate is the unburdening of the soul, and but that is not an option for any of these gods. And so I think there is like it seems like a degree to which the reason why mortals are involved is because they can make decisions that bear eternal consequence in a way without bearing the guilt or shame or burden eternally,
Hmm.
which is not a privilege that these eternal beings have.
Yeah.
And so they therefore burden the mortals intentionally with it.
Yeah. Oh, I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And I never even
Mhm.
thought like, yeah, Kaladin Brood has always just felt like more than a mortal to me,
Mhm.
up to this point. But I think you're right. I think he is just probably immortal with
No, he's
the power.
strong, right? I mean, like I mean, he rivals like Animander Ray, but like and even if he is like to a degree as close to us as possible, he can die,
Yeah.
right? And his soul would go to Hood's gate.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Well, cool. Let's So I think we'll get to what the plan is with the parlay,
mhm.
but yeah, I mean, I think Piran is maybe a good place to go next. Or we could just do oh my gosh, Silver Fox, because there really isn't too much more to do with Silver Fox other than
Mhm.
the second gathering. That's
Yeah.
really her part in this. Actually, let's go there because I've been itching to
Yeah.
talk about the second gathering
Yeah.
because what a just uh, I don't. It's not a bad thing, but like I thought the second gathering was gonna be like the second gathering, like rally the troops, like
Yeah.
hell
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like depressing as hell, and it's extremely short. So not at all
Yeah.
what I expected it to be, and yeah, really just sad. So yeah, I want to talk about the second gathering because Krupp goes. Krupp gets permission to go with her. Well, first they in the very beginning of the part, she finds the bones of the Talon Eye or whatever AI. Um, AEIOU.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so she finds those, and then they kind of become like her bodyguards or whatever, and then they go
Yep.
off to the second gathering, and a lot of information is given in this very short gathering. But the large scheme of things is that, or the big standouts for me are that Silver Fox has daddy issues. Um, um, but really is that the purpose of the gathering and the purpose of the Talani Moss now are they want to be able to die. They want to be able to move on. They're exhausted. They're tired. They're, uh, sad. Like but they haven't because they can't stand the idea of letting these tyrants be out there, and so they're meeting here to get permission from Silver Fox, their now leader, that after they defeat the Jagged that's working with the Panion Seer or whatever, they know that they know there's a Jagged involved,
Yep.
and they want permission after defeating them to rest, to finally break this. I mean, at this point, it's a curse.
Yep.
I don't know what they call it, spell or magic or what. Is there a word like whatever it is, transformation? They want to be
Mhm.
able to rest, and this comes as a shock to Silver Fox and to me it did for sure, because it's such the opposite of what you expect it to be, and Silver Fox says no, which is I mean, that's really how the meeting ends. They're begging her. They're begging her, and she's just
Mhm.
like, going back to the daddy issues, because she talks with Pran Chol and about like how technically like she's like, are you my father because like you met with Krupp and with Cruel and set this all up, so you're like kind of like my dad basically, and he's just like, no, I'm not your dad, and like technically if anyone's your dad it's Tool, which like I don't really know, because then later on they talk about how there's a fourth person inside of Silver Fox who is Silver Fox herself, the
Yep.
seed child of Pran Chol. So
Mhm.
I don't know, it's a little confusing, but yeah. So she's just like, I'm here, and now I'm gonna get abandoned again. No, no. You guys wanted me. Here I am. You're not gonna get to rest, uh, which is just a crazy thing in general. But that was really like the big one thing. Another big thing that comes out of it is we learn that there are renegade um, Talani Moss out there that have decided like, I'm not doing this forever. I'm gonna go do my own thing. Notably, I think bad things, right? Because can't remember if they give specifics or not, but I think we are to assume they're not good guys, not good Talani Moss.
Yep.
Not that the Talani Moss. I mean, I think it could be argued that they're not good either.
Yeah.
But I almost think they know that. That's why
Mhm.
they want to be done.
Mhm.
But it is interesting. Just yeah, I don't know. What did you think of that scene? Because it just was one of those like subverted my expectations completely, um, in a good way
I mean, it
or a
did.
neutral
It
way.
did for me as it did for me as well. I ultimately like the direction it's going, and I do. I mean, at least right now, my prediction, kind of how I think it's going to go, is I think ultimately she will reconcile, and that she will like release some of the burden, and I think that okay. So again, my throwing, we'll just put that more of my prediction out there is like, I think ultimately it's going to be Tool and his sister that bring it all together.
What was the
That
sister's name
ultimately,
again? Do we know?
oh my gosh.
The hell's her name?
We do know the name of it, but it's because she was in the prologue and everything.
Yeah,
Um,
that's okay. We don't.
I have, yeah,
We don't need to look. That's fine.
I'll get it later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll get it later. But I think ultimately, because remember, um, she didn't go through the ritual to Lan.
Kalava. Sorry, I'm just right there.
Lava, yeah. So yeah, so she didn't go through the ritual of Talon, so she's not an undead. And I think ultimately, I think ultimately her and her brother Tool are going to reconcile, and then that reconciliation is what's going to help Silver Fox. I think there's going to be some element there where that's ultimately what's going to help Silver Fox to reconcile.
There's
But
also
like, I mean,
those.
I totally
Sorry, just real quick.
okay.
But there's also those like we can't forget that their thrones, their gods' thrones are empty,
Yep.
which also might come back into play at some point. Because it does seem crazy of just like, all right, Talani Moss don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Seems crazy.
Yeah.
Because I think even Krupp says
Hmm.
like, or someone mentions, or maybe just someone's thinking that like, yeah, I mean like, yeah, we can get this Jagged and Coral, but there certainly could be more. There are Jagged
Yeah.
out there, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's like we can't keep doing this forever,
Yep.
kind of thing.
And but you get it. I mean, because you have this sort of sense of this child who was born at a time of war, who only knew their family leaving to go fight, and with this promise of possibly never coming back, or at least this possible future of just them not coming back, and then ultimately then the Talon and like the original Talon, and they're becoming undead, and now it's like they'll be fighting forever, and then once again this bone caster gets a second chance, so to speak, to like be with her people, even though she's singular amongst them, the only flesh and blood member, and then all they want to do is just leave again.
Yep.
Yep.
I before we move on from because really it's kind of crazy how like there's a lot of weight in what happens at the second gathering, but it's not information heavy or dense or anything like that. It's very quick. Um, but when she found the eye, um, we get a quick. I just wrote in my notes history lesson on the Kachain Shamal, the Jagged, and Talani Moss, and I
Yep.
bookmarked it because this was another one that I think like it's just worth reading if you're okay
Yep.
to humor me for
Yeah.
like it's a little long, but
Hmm.
it's just flooded with information that matters.
Yeah.
You
And
think
it connects back to talk too, which is fun.
that's
Yeah.
the third part I bookmarked was the part with
Yeah.
talk. So yeah, here we
Yeah.
go. Just a snippet of like I think it's Caller that is telling them the history of these things. So
Yep. Yep.
I'm just gonna jump
Yep.
in. It says, fortunate for us all, muttered Caller. I am not so ignorant of these creatures as the rest of you, bearing Corlat. Further, I am feeling unusually loquacious. Thus, remnants of the Kachain Shamal civilization can be found on virtually every continent of this world. Indeed, in the place of my old empire, Jakuruku, their strange mechanisms filled pits and holes in the earth. Whenever my people had to cut below the surface, they discovered such constructs. More, barrows, is it barrows or barrows? Barrows?
Boros.
Barrows. Barrows were found. Scholars conducted careful examination of their contents. Do you wish to hear on account of their conclusions, or am I boring you? Which, by the way, I do want to pause. Do you think, because as soon as I read that, I thought, I wonder if that's what Corbel Broach and Boshelin were looking for in the Barrows in part 1.
Could be.
Something like that. Anyways,
Yeah.
go on, Kaladin drawled. Very well. Perhaps there is more wisdom present here than I had previously credited. The beasts appear to be reptilian, capable of breeding their own kind to specific talents. Those the T-Standee called Kell Hunters, for example, were born as warriors. Undead versions are in the valley below, yes? They had no hands, but swords in their stead, somehow melded to the very bones of their forearms. The Kachane Shamal were matriarchal, matrilineal. As a population of bees have their queen, so too these beasts. She is the breeder, the mother of every child, and within this matron resided the sorceress capacity of her entire family. Power to beggar the gods of today. Power to keep the elder gods from coming to this world, and were it not for the self-destruction of the Kachane Shamal, they would rule unchallenged to this day. Self-destruction, Corlett said, a sharpness in her eyes as she studied Kalar. An interesting detail, can you explain? Of course. Among the records, which, by the way, this is really is just an info dump, but it's so interesting I didn't care. Among the records found, once the language was deciphered, and that effort alone is worthy of a lengthy monologue, but seeing as you all shift about in your saddles like impatient children, I'm getting called out immediately by Kalar.
Yeah.
I'll spare the telling. Among the records found, then, it was learned that the matrons, each commanding the equivalent of a modern city, had gathered to meld their disparate ambitions. What they sought, beyond the vast power they already possessed, is not entirely clear. Then again, what need there be for reasons when ambition rules? Suffice to say, an ancient breed was resurrected, returned from extinction by the matrons, a more primitive version of the Kachane Shamal themselves. For lack of a better name, my scholars at the time called them short tails. Whiskey Jack, his eyes on Corlap, was the only one to see her stiffen at that. Which is also just interesting that maybe she has some knowledge of that. I don't know.
Tista and Andy are also very old,
Mm,
and she's one of the older ones too.
okay. And then I'm going to kind of skip a little to the next part. So for the singular reason that they physically deviated from the other Kachane Shamal in having short stubby tails rather than the normal long tapered ones, this made them not as swift, more upright, suited to whatever world and civilization they had originally belonged to. Alas, these new children were not as tractable as the matrons were conditioned to expect among their brood. More explicitly, the short tails would not surrender or merge their magical talents with their mothers. The result was a civil war, and the sorceries unleashed were apocalyptic. To gauge something of the desperation among the matrons, one need only travel south on this continent to a place called Morn. The Rent, Corlat murmured, nodding. She and then Kalar says, she sought to harness the power of a gate itself, but not simply a common Warren's gate. Oh no, she elected to open the portal that led to the realm of chaos. Such hubris to think she could assert order upon such a thing. And I think that's really it. But like, that was one of those things that's just like, I could read that 10 times and still feel like I've got like a 50% grasp on it. But the important things that I think we are to get out of this is that that the Kachane Shamal were strong enough to keep elder gods out, and had they not had this civil war, that they would have ruled the entire world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and we got not just that, but also from Silver Fox as well, because she was directly asked like why they're so hell bent on rooting out the Chain Kamal. And so like going after the Kell Hunters. Sorry, they're like why they're so like desperate to go after the Kell Hunters, and she basically explained that like in the same way that the Jagged had enslaved the Amas, they had been enslaved by these Chain.
Yeah.
And so they were the tyrants before the tyrants, and that the Talan Amas they oppose all of it. And so, but they would have continued their tirade, so to speak.
Yeah, and then I can't. So, is it saying that the Yeah, so it seems like the Rent and Mourn, they're saying that was a result of the Civil War, because the matron or a matron. That's the other thing. It's like I think there's more than one matron.
There was there, may, but I don't think there is anymore. I think what
Mm,
happened. So again, this goes back to one of my other predictions, which may come true, may not. But from the previous part, um, I think that was a warrant of chaos.
mm-hmm,
I think that she tried to harness it
mm-hmm,
in order to have the power to defeat the short tails.
mm-hmm,
I think she failed, and she got trapped in the Warren in the Rent the same way that we saw with like the Talon and Moss back on the boat in Deadhouse Gates.
mm-hmm.
Eternal suffering
And we're to think that
because
she is
of
the one torturing Talk, right?
and she's the one torturing Talk, and she was freed when the two Jaggets went in.
Yep.
And I think at least one of those Jaggets is with her still.
Is the seer.
Yep.
Yeah. So crazy. I mean, the
Mhm.
most info dump of all info dumps, but like
Yeah.
I like that he calls it out too.
Yeah.
And it's like half a page, but like
Yeah.
it does to me. The way that he does info dumps is just like I don't think he's expecting you to now have this knowledge fully and going forward.
Mhm.
Like I don't think it's
Yep.
a test or anything. You know what I mean? Like, but to me, it's just like I want to mark it and talk about it because it does seem, especially in a series like this where we're kind of like dissecting it a little bit more. It definitely feels very important of an info dump. So yeah, I did want to mark
Mhm.
that before we jumped off of Silver Fox because I think that's really she ends up going back and
Mhm.
says we'll talk about what the Talani Moss plan is when we talk about where everyone's going. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, really all we
Yep.
have left is Piran, which
Yep. Well,
we
there's one
mostly
other thing we should
yeah yeah
one other thing we should mention with Silver Fox is we did also get confirmation that the Talon Eye are
mm,
the undead. They're undead wolves that are beholden to or maybe endeared to the two wolf
yeah
gods.
Tog and Fanderay.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Who want
and
them back?
what's that?
Who want them back?
Who went them back, and I
Yep.
think what's her name, Nora or Norrell asks
Yep.
Silver Fox this
Hmm.
later on,
Yep.
and Silver Fox says no, I plan on using them as a gift. We don't know what that gift is, but that's it's. I think Norrell even thinks like something like, yeah, well, I think she thinks to herself like that gift might just kill you. Um,
Well,
so
because specifically, it's not that the gift will kill her. It's
yeah,
that
hanging on to him.
it's that the yeah, it's hang on to them. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
Like I don't think the Eye are going to be like, we're going to kill you. But yeah, her not turning them over to Tog and Fandray, maybe even Tog and Fandray will, not be
well,
appreciative
n-
of her not giving them
well, and
back.
that
Or
yeah, and that's kind of what I took it from it because my understanding was like they're operating in the mortal realm, like they're now influencing the mortal realm
mm-hmm.
directly, and so that was kind of the idea is like they found each other and like they will probably take their wrath out on you
Yeah.
for refusing them. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let's go to Piran. I think we're almost just done with Piran by, you know,
Yep.
whatever association. Um, so really, the important thing with Piran is that there are two things. One really important part is that he's finally kind of accepted his power. He's not really feeling ill anymore. And
Mhm.
I think he reaches out to Silver Fox, and she's not talking to him. But at some point, Night Chill, Night Chill reaches out to him. They're like telepathically communicating, and she basically says to him, "Hey, this is what you need to do. You need to free." I'm blanking on his name. The guy that created. I'm blanking on all the names now. The sword. What's the sword that Animanarake has?
Dragon Pearl.
Dragnipur, which was crafted by Draconis.
Oh,
Draconis.
cool. Yep.
So she
Yep.
says we need to free Draconis,
Yep.
and the only way that you can do that is by destroying. Um, you just said it,
Dragon Pearl.
Dragnipur. Yeah,
But basically from the inside, like they
from
basically
the
have to like
inside. Yeah.
go in. Get to, and there's like the whole thing of like, how do you even do that? It's like, well, there's probably somebody who knows. The guy who's trapped in the sword.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't really remember how. I don't think that it doesn't end with him saying like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it." It kind of just
No, he's
ends with
not
no
sure about
answer.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a really important part that happens with him.
Hmm.
And she kind of informs him like, "This is how like we need to fight the cripple god." She tells him the stakes basically, of like, "This
Yeah,
is why you need to do it." Not she's not just appearing and saying, "Do it." Uh,
yeah,
So then the other important part is this House of Chains. He is the master of the deck. This House of Chains is being put together, and every party's talking about it. Of like, we cannot let him approve this house. We can't let him give the House of Chains his blessing, and he, as the master of the deck, can choose not to. He has that power, and everyone's talking about it. All we got to do is just make sure he doesn't do it. But then he sits down with Gruntle in that conversation you were talking about, and they kind of talk about how they both hate their jobs, if we want to call them that, their roles. They both don't want them, and then they're kind of chatting about that. And Gruntle kind of says like, "Well, what if you did give it your blessing?" And Prawn's like, "What? Why would I do that?" And he's like, "Well, because if you do, then they've got to play by the rules, because I guess that's just those are the rules. Like if you are an official blessed in house, there are rules that you have to abide by, and you must. Something is binding you to this rule set, and maybe it's better to do that than to not, and then he can kind of do whatever he wants." And Prawn is like hyped. He's like, "That's it.
yeah,
That's it." Um, and so he never officially, because at some point we'll get to Quick Ben, but Quick Ben shows up and says like, "Hey, have you decided?" And Prawn kind of says like, "I don't know yet," but Quick Ben leaves that conversation thinking like, "All right, he's gonna bless the house. We got to prepare for it." Um, which is interesting because yeah, I think even leading up to that, I was just like, okay, so he just won't bless it. Like what is going to convince? Because like I think we know as readers he's gonna bless it even before they have that conversation. But like to me, I was like, what possible believable way could we get Paran to bless it? Like I know he's like an angry emo boy, but like he's still. I just wouldn't get on board with him being like, yeah, well, you know what? I'm gonna bless it. But it does make sense. Like the reason why he's going to do it does make sense
yeah.
enough to where I can get on board with him doing it. And like, we'll talk about in predictions, but I think, but we said it earlier, we are both assuming that's exactly what's going to happen. He is going to
Yeah.
bless it.
No, and I think it makes perfect sense, and it just I think it's really like for me the thing I really love about it is it feels it's this moment that feels like Gardens again, where it feels like we're setting the pieces back up on the board. That's what it feels like. It's like Piranha is basically just accepting like whole yeah, like this is what they do. They play chess
Mm-hmm.
against each other, and all we be doing is like we're giving pieces to the House of Chains to play the game. But now he's playing the game the same
There are
way that
rules to the
everybody
game.
plays the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I love this idea of like just invite them into the chess match so that that everyone's playing in the match.
Yeah.
And it's just a really cool like idea, right?
Yeah.
Of like sort of formalizing it all. So I'm very excited to see how that goes. I'm also just really, again, really excited too to see why it is. Two things, like why it is that the Pantheon operates the way it does. Like what is this game like? What are these rules that are being imposed? But then, secondly, like why? Like we know the corrupted god wants to take down the Warrens. We know that they want to take the Pantheon, but he's gone to a lot of effort to be able to erect the House of Chains. Why? Like, why is the House of Chains important?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why is it important that he's a member of the Pantheon to do this? So that's to me like really fascinating too.
Yeah. And another thing that
Hmm.
hasn't really come up again with that the Cripple God has is that like corrupted deck of cards of the
Hmm.
deck of dragons where it's like disease, and maybe that is just what he's using to poison the Warrens, and like that's all. but I do feel like it's going to come up again. So I'm curious about that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was a cool place to leave off with Perron's line and with Gruntle's. That's kind of the last I think we see of either of them, other than maybe at the meeting. I think they're there.
Yep.
But nothing of any significance if I remember correctly. But
Mhm.
we can do quick bends quickly because while it was great, I think there is significance for sure. There's important things that happen, but
Mhm.
it's
I was
more of
trying to
like
find.
this actually reminds me also of Gardens of the Moon. This whole like line of like starting even with like one, we find out Buke is now a soul taken. That's what Karuli gave him, the ability to become a soul taken, and we find out that Boshlin and Corporal Broach are also soul taken. So they've holed up in this house in this district, and they've summoned an army of dead seer domans or whatever, basically Urdo men or soldiers in the Panyan army. They've raised them as these bodyguards for their house, and then Corporal Broach wants to do some experiments on a Nestor. So they go off and they try and I guess capture a Nestor. Fail. They go back to their house. And then we don't see them again until Quick Ben happens. So Quick Ben and Talamandas, they're like I don't know why, but for me, I picture them as almost like a Groot and Rocket. Even though the stick snare is like small, but he's like always on his little shoulder and everything, but basically, Telemondas tells him like, "Hey, all my gods, the Barghast gods, and like all of the gods are willing to work together and give you access to their warrens and power, all of them, or maybe not every single one, but a lot of them. I can't remember if it's 6 or 12. It's a value of 6 because later on he uses 6 at a time and then uses 6 again. So I don't know if it's 6 additional or like the same 6 again, just depleting it further.
Yeah, it's that
It's
because
okay. It's the same 6 again.
yeah, because there's this whole kind of point of like he's hiding the extent of
Yeah.
what he can do because there's that whole moment of like I think it's Bouchelin who's like really you probably only should have shown me like half of what you're
Yeah,
capable
because
of
now
and
I'm
Quick
gonna
Ben's
torture
yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah, and then Quick Ben is like, oh, I did.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just a cool scene. He basically like stealths into the place, their house that they're holed up in, and Corporal Broach is still in his like bird form, and
Yep.
he's talking to Boshlin. And like Emanciport Reese is like another new favorite of mine. Like
Yeah.
he's like Boshlin's like, go get me a bottle of fine wine, and he comes
Yeah,
back with like,
I was gonna read
oh
pieces
yeah,
of
yeah,
that
go ahead and read it.
because this was like definitely one of the funniest scenes I found in like the whole book. But I'll just kind of skip through part of it where, like, okay, this is like one of those classic scenes where the guy walks in and then all the guns get pointed at him and he's just like smoothly coming in. That's Quickbin, right?
Yep.
And so they're just going to sit down, they're going to have some wine. And so it just says the subsequent silence was broken by Emancipor's return, bearing a tray on which sat a dusty bottle and 2 crystal goblets. Not a glass for yourself? The necromancer asked. Am I so unegalitarian, Emancipor? I took a swig below, master. You did? To see if it was flowery. And was it? Not sure. Maybe, what's flowery? We must resume your education, I think, of such finer things. Flowery is the opposite of woody, not bitter, memory, or sap, in other words, but something sweet, as of narcissus or skullcrown. Those flowers are poisonous, Quickben noted in faint alarm, but pretty and sweet in appearance, yes. I doubt any of us are in a habit of eating flowers, thus an analogy I sought visual cues for dear Mansipor. I see. And then before you pour that bottle, then, Emancipor, was the aftertaste bitter or sweet? Oh, it was kind of thick, master, like iron. And Butchlin rose and grasped the bottle. He held it close, then sniffed the mouth. You idiot! This is blood from Corbel Broach's collection. Not that row, the one opposite. And so I'll just skip ahead a little bit. And it says, blood, whose is it? Doesn't matter. And Emancipor gaped. Quickbane clears his throat and says, to your servant, I think the answer would be yes, it does matter whose blood. So, and then founding Boston collected the bottle and again sniffed it once more. He said, returning to the tray, I'm not one to ask, of course, but I think it's virgin's blood. And Quick Bench had no choice but to acquire. How can you tell? Bushlet regarded with raised brow. Why? It's Woody.
Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah, great
It's
scene.
just perfect dark humor. It's just
Yeah. And then the scene ends. We like we go
yeah,
away from them and
that's it. That's
yeah.
it. It's just done.
Hilarious. Yeah.
this this whole like talk of like education of like Flowery and Woody. It's just like then it goes to the plot. Why
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Woody.
That's great. Yeah, so then really the biggest thing that happens is Quick Ben uses his powers on Corporal Broach to and then basically tells Boshin like what's going on with the cripple god. And then
Mhm.
Boshin's like, cool, now I'm going to torture you and get all the information you got. He's like, no, actually, I'm going to use the rest of my power and blast you too. And then they leave. But this is another part that cracked me up. Manzapur Reese comes in. He's just like, why won't anyone just kill them? Like, why do we keep knocking them out? And like, I got to save them over and over again. Somebody just kill them, please. Like,
Yeah, because they have the whole like running with like Picker and Bled. It's just the
again,
same.
yeah. Yeah, they like knock him out, and then literally it just says something like Emancipor Reese walked up. And it's like exactly what his reaction's gonna be, but we don't see it. And he's probably just like, Jesus Christ, like please, someone save me from these guys. Um, but notably on the way back through the Warrens, um, Quick Ben basically says like, Telemandus, I'm tapped, but I need to use your power. Telemandus is like, what? No, like like we gave you permission. You can't have mine. I'm their shield, and that's the biggest thing is like he is his shield against the poison. But then he does end. He's like, well, we got to test it. We got to see how far we can push it. So Telemandus agrees, thus revealing that Telemandus is working for Hood. In some capacity, we don't really know. And Hood then shows up and talks to Quick Ben, also telling him basically like, we got to make sure that Paran does not give the blessing. And they've got some bad blood because Hood's like, don't forget, Quick Ben, like you disrespect me, but like you're gonna be mine someday. Which is a cool interaction. But Quick Ben just, yeah, cool, calm, and collected, and just goes through. And that's really
Yeah.
kind of where we left off with them.
Yeah, Quick Ben's gonna need to find a way to ascend because he's pissed off most of the Pantheon at this
Yeah.
point. So
But he might be the. I mean, he's also crazy powerful because now he's got access to all those warrens, and he already had. We found out in this book,
yeah,
all that power inside him from the different mages that
yeah.
he collected along like the path in the desert. So like uber powerful.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think we're ready to quickly do talk, and then where we left off. This is definitely a long video, but
Yep.
it's been great. I feel like we gotta talk about it. We gotta talk about talk, and we can do it probably pretty quickly. I don't think there's too
Yeah.
much. I do want to read a small segment when we get there,
Yeah.
so that might take a couple minutes. But yeah, why don't you kick us off with talk?
Yeah, yeah. So talk basically ended with him being captured and tortured by this matron, who we now understand who that matron is, although we didn't really know of them as the matron at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to note that this matron is essentially trying to persist in the vain hope, or at least we perceive it to be a vain hope, that that she might be able to find a true-blooded, a warm-blooded, let's say, although I guess it would be cold-blooded because they're reptilian, but a living, non-undead Jane Shamala. I keep saying that differently every
Jane
single time,
Chamala.
but yeah. Um,
There's in the Dark
that,
Tower. There's something called you dance the Kamala, and they say
yeah,
come Kamala, and that's all I can think of when you say that Kachang Kamala.
yeah. And so because like a bee, they just it needs one. She needs one male who can actually provide seed, so she can start breeding again. And then the idea is it will just go out of control from there. That they may not be able to defend against them again, because then the matron will be able to single handedly bring back a whole city of these things. Basically, she'll do her own Zerg rush on the rest of the world. And I think that we should be at this point, especially related to talks line. I think we should be very concerned that she knows of a way to bring about a living hunter, like a living male.
Mm.
In much the same way that like Silver Fox is a living and breathing bone caster, even though the rest of the Talani monster are undead, essentially, and that she has a way to break the ritual of Talan. I think we need to assume that there is a way in which, or a maybe another rent or a place, but there is a way in which she might be able to bring back a male, either from the current undead or something like that. So I don't think we should suspect that she's just hoping.
Mm.
And I think that the Panion Domain is, I think, related to this venture, so to speak. So, so it'll be interesting to see kind of where that storyline goes. But yeah, Talk had been captured, and now, but Talk was not killed. Talk is now being essentially dragged along with them, and we get this really like heartbreaking scene with Talk. Do you want to? I don't remember all the specific details of the scene. I just remember that they're looking out along a. I think it was it a beach, or
It's almost
and
like it's
because
coral,
yeah,
and it's like almost like this sub civilization of like nets
yep,
where people lived in the nets and they would like dock the ships and everything like
yep.
that. And it's
And he just
not
has
the
this
Panion
like
Seer that
evil,
frees him
yep,
for that moment. It's a Seer Doman.
yep, who like gives him like a coat, right? Like drapes him with a cloak, which is like he like cries, recognizing that it's just like the only shred of dignity he basically has at the moment.
Yeah.
Was it? Were you wanting to read something related to that part, or was it something
No,
else?
no.
Okay.
It's the when Talk and maybe or maybe meet in
Mm,
their visions.
mm, yeah.
But yeah, no,
So yeah.
that part is great. We find out that the Seer Doman was just, I think, some kind of higher up within Coral, and kind of was forced into that um, position of Seer Doman. And but yeah, another just show of mercy. Even though he has to take him back afterwards, but
Mm,
yeah, he's like, I kind of just wanted you to see Coral
mhm.
for what it was and give you a small break, which was nice. Yeah, but then he
Yeah.
brings him
And
back
there's
in.
a and it's like it's a short scene, but there's this like there was a piece of that scene that was just really impactful where as they leave, he says, you know, lean against me, Talk. Your weight is not too much for me. Your weight is almost like nothing in a way, right? Um, and and then Talk basically says like, you know, like I am just like that insignificant now, essentially, and or like he's like, you know, the burdens I carry are like nothing. It's basically kind of this accusation of like it's almost as if you know the burdens I carry are nothing, and then he kind of reiterates, he's like, no, that's not what I mean, right?
Yeah.
And so there's sort of this like recognition of like, you know, the what Talk, like the trauma, the burdens, the scars that like Talk now carry, like he has this recognition of, and probably from personal experience in a way too, right? Of how much of a burden he carries, and that's not insignificant. um and so yeah, it's just a very neat dialogue.
Yeah, I
I
remember that
remember
as
the
well.
exact,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I don't remember the exact prose, unfortunately. I'm not that
Yeah, it's
that
you're
familiar
like
with
right
detail,
there.
but
Yeah, something like
yeah,
that. But really impactful, and that's how it
yeah,
ends too. That's the scene.
yeah.
That's where it ends, and it is one of those that like you read it and you're like, I'm gonna read it again, and yeah, it
Mhm,
like really hits when you read it again. And yeah,
mhm.
it was just great and very in line with kind of what we had experienced previously in this part with other people.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's just like that is like one of the greatest. I mean, not just the greatest things, but it's just like one of the coolest things that consistently happens with these stories. And again, not to take shots at other like fantasy stories or things like that, but it's just Steven Erickson has a real ability to bring characters to life regardless of where those characters are on the side of the conflict or vice versa, and he can do so in short scenes, which is just crazy. Like he maybe humanized is not the right word, but the like the Pain and Zero is no longer this like one dimensional, you know, character. It's
wait,
not,
hold on,
or
because
it was a
I don't think it's the Panion Seer.
okay. It's just a Pain and
It's a
It's just
Seer
Doman.
Doman, yeah.
That's right.
So it's
Seer
just like
Doman.
one of his captains or
Yep.
whatever
Yep.
that takes him kind of behind the back of the Panion
Right.
Seer. Yeah.
But again, it's just like it's this. this captain in some sense like represents like for us going to the Pandion Domin in a way, right? And
Yeah.
I think you're right because I think he holds essentially the same position as like the person who assaulted Stormy. It's
Yeah,
essentially like
exactly. Some kind of
one of those
captain or
officers.
general or yeah, exactly.
And he is probably more akin to like a general. This one who we see with talk for him to have like that degree of authority, for example. But again, it just sort of like it brings this element to the forces that they're not just one dimensional. They are bad. They are evil. That's it, right? It's like no, it's like he consistently has this way to bring this element to these characters so that way there's a lot more depth to them, right? And that they're a lot more complex in terms of characters, a lot more interesting, and then they feel like they have a place in the story, and it's not to just be this meteor that collides with the forces of good,
Yeah.
right? And it's very cool.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, other than that, with talk, kind of combining with the Mybe or whatever. Yeah, the Mybe, the Mybe.
Yeah, exactly.
So she's been continually having these nightmares of wolves chasing her. She is running. She thinks if they capture her, she will die. She associates these wolves with the Talon Eye that Silver Fox has found. So she thinks Silver Fox is trying to kill her. Continue to have these nightmares. Krupp is trying to ease those nightmares with trinkets and whatever. He's got kind of a plan. And at the same time, Talk is having dreams where he is chasing after something. And then kind of in their final dream, they find each other. He's in a cave. She makes it to this cave. And they have a conversation in which he does not believe that who she says he is. She thinks it's the Pandion Seer playing tricks on her. She doesn't believe who he is. She thinks that he's trying to kill her, and so on and so forth. And so here's what I'm going to read. So the Mibby says to him, "I am fleeing my daughter." He says, "Flight is an illusion. Even mother here comprehends that. She knows I am not her child, yet she cannot help herself. She even possesses memories of a time when she was a true matron, a mother to a real brood, children who loved her and other children who betrayed her and left her to suffer for eternity. She never anticipated an escape from that, yet when she found herself free at last, it was discovered that her world had turned to dust." So, right, we're assuming when she was freed from the rent. "Her children were long dead, entombed in their burrows, for without a mother they withered and died." The Kachain Chamal, just in general, we think, or the Kel Hunters? Probably
I think they in general. I
in
think
general.
the queen dies, the hive goes with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She looked to you then, seer. She's talking to Mybe, but he thinks it's the seer. So she looked to you then, seer, her adopted son, and showed you your power so that she could use it to recreate her world. She raised her dead children. She set them to rebuilding the city, but it was all false. The delusion could not deceive her, could only drive her mad. And that, he continued, is when you usurped her. Thus her child has made her a prisoner once more. There is no escaping the paths of our lives, it seems, a truth you're not prepared to face, seer, not yet. And then maybe says, "My child has made me a prisoner as well. Is this the curse of all mothers? It is the curse of love." And that's really it. But yeah, like I think it just confirms exactly what we were talking about, where she was the person in the rent. She fell out. Chain Chamal had died because they didn't have a mother after the Civil War. Her adopted children were the two Jaggets that were put in there. One of them betrayed her, which is the seer. I think. Well, actually, that part could also just be like the short tails betrayed, because they are the ones that caused the Civil War. Because then he goes on to talk about how the adopted son usurped her.
Yeah, I think the adopted son is the jagged. The children betrayed her are the short tails.
Yeah,
I think we can conclude that this is perhaps the matron that brought forth the short tails.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think you're right. And so yeah. I mean, I think you're spot on where that is the Jagged that got put in there, and then he put her back in when he usurped her. And yeah, I don't know, just another one of those things that like so much weight in that like two paragraphs, and even just the like, is this the curse of all mothers? It's the curse of love. you wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. Like, you see that all the time with like you think of like parents. I mean, parents that would just do anything for their kids in general. But like you think of like you'll see it with like children who become drug addicts, right? And the parents don't want to give up on them. They'll give them a house. They'll give them a place because they want to help them, no matter what, because they're children. They love them, and sometimes that it can come back to bite you. And in this case, it did. So I just like that whole part was really interesting.
Yeah, it's just I mean, it's just really powerful prose,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it makes it so interesting to see how this particular story is going to unfold because it just leaves open this question of like that what is the goal then, right? Like
I
you
know.
usurped the matron, so for to what end? Like to what end is that for? Yeah, and then I it should be noted that the Maibi this is not the first time she's been referred to as a seer,
Well,
and so
I think from my understanding is that Talk thinks this is the
yep,
Panion Seer playing
I,
tricks on him.
I think so too. But I wonder if there's some wordplay going on here
Oh
too.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
there certainly could be
because she's being kept alive for
for
a
something.
reason,
Yeah,
and the wolves. There is something about her that like that the wolves are they detest. Maybe detest is not the right word, but like they see her as a threat. I mean, like I think that's the only way that I can
interesting.
gauge this is
I have a
like
different take.
yeah,
I have
yeah,
a different take. We'll talk about it
yeah,
with the
yeah,
predictions.
yeah,
Um,
but yeah,
so very quickly, we did skip over the scene. I mean, you briefly talked about it with. It is a really important scene though,
mhm.
where Whiskey Jack and Amanda Rake turns into a dragon and he fucking kills all the
Yeah,
tennis scour. It was awesome. And then with
yeah,
Whiskey Jack is gonna kill all of the women, and then Whiskey Jack says no, you can't. Uh, and Amanda Rake's like, well, someone's got to do it, and like if you want to spare them the eternity in my sword, you have to do it. And yeah, they're trying to take it off each other. Whiskey Jack ends up doing it, and the real resolution of that is that they capture Annister, and they decide that Itkovian will be the one that
yep.
judges his fate.
And I believe Whiskey Jack didn't he kill Anasta's mom? Wasn't she one of the people who got slain?
I think so.
She's dead by this point, but I thought she was among that group.
Yeah, if she's
I
dead
could
at
be
this point,
wrong.
she's part of that group. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think you're right. So yeah, that scene happened. It was cool. We got to see Amanda Rake as a dragon again. Sweet. Um,
yeah. I mean, always cool.
yeah, always cool.
Yeah.
But even like he like Annister, uh, bites him or something because he picks him up as a dragon and like chucks him
Yeah.
off because like something happens. So maybe it is
Yep.
just the pure despair is just too much, or I don't know. But
Yep.
so real quick, I guess just where do we leave off going? I'm just gonna say where everyone's going because I wrote these down in two different sections because there's a meeting before and a meeting after. Okay, so Whiskey Jack and the Malazans are going to Seta. Brood and his army are going to Lest, two cities that have previously been taken over by the Panion. Then they are going to meet up at Coral, as well as the Anamander Rake's city, Moonspawn, will be at Coral.
Yep.
And then we also have Barghast are joining the Malazans to going to Seta. The Grey Swords are joining, in theory, the Tanaskauri with them, or whatever.
Yep.
We don't really have their new title yet, or if they're just staying the Grey Swords. They're going to
That's
go
what it
to
seems like.
Lest with Brood, and the Talani Moss are going to Coral. I guess they're just going straight to Coral.
Yep.
So yeah, that's where everybody's going. We're gonna have probably two little battles in the two cities, which is crazy. Like, there's not that much book left, but I guess we're probably gonna have two battles in Seta and Lest, and then the big battle in Coral. And then lastly, the Panion Seer kind of realizes what's about to happen. So with Lady Envy and Tool and the dogs and the Segula, Segula, they're coming up to
Segula.
Coral. So he leaves Outlook. Actually, sorry, I think they were in Outlook and he leaves Outlook to go to Coral. They're on
Yeah.
the move at some point. I can't remember. I think they're going to Coral.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, so they go to Coral and he raises in this like little bay south of Coral. He raises all this ice so that Lady Envy and them can't just cross the bay. They're gonna have to go all the way around. So that happens, and then our very last chapter, the very last part of the last chapter, is we catch up with Lady Envy and with Tool and with the dogs. Um, one of the dogs, I'm trying to think of his name,
Gareth.
Gareth. Gareth is
Mhm.
sick, in which Lady Envy then just tells us Polale, the Queen of Disease, has allied with the crippled god. She heals Gareth, and then basically they're not going to go around. They jump onto this like city made of ice kind of thing, like a ship city that it's basically a ship city, I think. It was a little like abstract where I was like, I think this is like
Yeah.
a city that sails, like a whole city.
Yeah, I always think it's almost like a city afloat in a way, or like city out to sea.
Yeah.
And it's like I think it's like from Coral essentially. It's like an old, or it's maybe even older than that. But it's
Mm.
like it has like a long history, and because the Segula talk about how these were used as ways to raid their islands,
Mm.
and that oftentimes they would be utterly crushed, but because they were so thoroughly crushed, there would always be another one because they wouldn't know the fate, right?
Mm.
Um, and so, but then this one is mysteriously empty,
Yep.
yeah,
Almost.
except for one
Yeah.
person.
So
Yeah.
except so they come across a Talani Moss, a specifically. So most of this I'm just reading because it's happened so fast and there's a lot of new information. They come across a Kurlum Talani Moss named Lanus Tog. She is the last of the Kurlum Talani Moss, the rest of which all died fighting alongside of the Ifael.
Which is another clan of Talanimas.
Okay, it is okay. So
I think so.
Um, and I think Lady Envy says like, "Oh, you're fighting on a place called a sail, by the way." And I think Lady Envy says like, "Oh, you're fighting some jackets over there or something," and they're like, "No, no, we're fighting humans or a human or yeah," and that's really where we leave off with them. So I have no idea what the hell that means as far as like are we? Is
But
this like just something we're not going to see into a future book? That cannot all possibly be resolved in
no,
that
I
short
think
amount of time.
I think that's what it is. I think that's it's setting up for another story. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, she's the lone survivor of 50,000 Amos,
yeah,
which is
it's
crazy.
crazy. And but are we safe to assume that they're not the renegade clans? Because it
No,
seems like they're fighting for good.
I don't think that they're the renegade clans.
Okay.
I think that because we do know that there are Amos or Emas everywhere who are fighting in different areas. But she talks about the gathering, doesn't she? She talks about I'm responding to the second
Yeah,
gathering.
she's going to the
So,
gathering. Yeah.
yeah, so she's not a renegade because the renegades wouldn't come.
That. Oh yeah, you're right.
But at
You're
least
right.
that's the way I would seem
No,
to
yeah,
me.
that makes total sense. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we did it.
Mm.
But we still got more to talk about.
Yeah.
This shouldn't take too long. So, do you have any? I don't. I didn't really have any dislikes other than the. I wish I was a little more clear on the time passage of time during the Capustan battle. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But I did find I'm just like the type of reader that likes to be grounded. Not as far as like magic systems or anything like that, because there's a lot of this series where you're not grounded. But something like time or direction. Like I hate reading a scene. I'm like, I think they're north of this city, but like, oh no, wait, they're west. It just makes it hard for me to find my ground my ground there. So that's really it. Dislikes. Any dislikes?
No, not really. I mean, mostly just like curiosities. I thought, there was a time when I was thinking about Silver Fox, and I was like, do I like this direction that it's going? But honestly, I mean, there's still plenty of time in this book, and it didn't feel it didn't feel too late for us to see this sort of development of her character, where her heart's becoming more hard and she's becoming more stubborn. There's a rift between her and Paran, and she's definitely a lot more. I mean, we're seeing a lot more of Night Chill in her, so to speak, but she's definitely a lot more. Um, she's giving the cold shoulder to everybody, being a lot more secretive. But
Makes sense with the themes we've set up and
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
It makes sense that not everybody's just like, boom,
right.
I'm going to show some grace. And
Yeah, and so I think like, but I think this felt very appropriate for her character, and it also introduces a really interesting conflict. Like we don't necessarily know what's now going to happen with these bone casters, and so yeah, and now for the next part, I mean, I suspect that we'll get more development in Silver Fox, but I do think that this could be one of those things where if we don't get more development, I'm going to be like, not that it has to be resolved, but I'm gonna be like, well, like, why are we seeing this turn with her character if it's just gonna be resolved in another book? So I'm hoping that we'll get more with her, but I also think we are. I don't think it's just gonna leave it
yeah,
there,
it's
and then we
really
don't see Silver
interesting to
Fox
think
again.
about. I just like can't. I feel like that makes sense on paper that we will get that, and she, because I mean, we'll talk about predictions here in a second, but I think we both have the same prediction in that she is going to release them.
Hmm.
But like, what does that mean for the series with no more Talani Moss? Like, that's just a crazy thing to happen this early on. But it would be really cool. It would be crazy. So I'm just gonna quickly just shoot off my likes, and then you can shoot off your likes, and then we'll get to predictions. So I put that I enjoyed both the street level for Gruntle specifically, and then the commanding Itkovian POVs for the Capustan siege. Thought that was great. The child banner, super memorable and great. Bracalian's death was awesome. Itkovian emerging as a main character for me, really, like we talked about, stand out for me. What the shield anvil actually is, Quick Ben powering up, and then just the grace shown by, but I think you're right, I think mercy is the better word. The mercy shown by characters, namely Itkovian and Whiskey Jack. But really just like if I had to rank every like part of every Malazan book, this would be top 2 with the end of Deadhouse for me as of right now. Hard carried by Itkovian. Hard
Yeah.
carried. Because damn.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about predictions. Do you wanna go back and forth, or you wanna do all yours and I'll do all mine?
Yeah, do all yours, and then I'll join.
All right, I think Itkovian becomes a main character for like the series. I don't think this is his only book. I think he becomes a main character, like a Whiskey Jack or something like that. I think Tok becomes the mortal sword of Tog, and here's where we differed. I think the Mibi or Mybi or the Mybai becomes the Destriant or the shield anvil of Fandaray, because I think Tog and Fandaray have their own sets, is my thinking. Like, we've got the shield anvil, we've got the mortal sword, and we've got the Destriant of Tog, but what about Fandaray? So I think maybe that's where the Mybai ends up going. And then Silverfox does let the Talani Moss go or die or whatever after they take down the Panyan Seer. And then just I always got to put someone's going to die because I just like taking shots. I think Corlat dies. I don't think that romance is to be long lived, which sucks. I want it to be. I like them. I ship them. But I don't think Whiskey Jack gets that happy of an ending. So those are my predictions going into either the next part or just the series kind of as a whole.
Yeah. I guess I'll just throw out predictions that sort of go along with yours, or in some sense, like maybe counter yours.
Don't forget to write these down afterwards too, so we have them for,
Oh yeah.
for next
Yeah,
time.
exactly. So so I'm just gonna go along with it. I think I also think Akovian will become a main character in the series. I don't know. I'll just go ahead and put it out there as a prediction because I would really like to see it. I would love to see Akovian be another ascended character.
Mm.
I would love that as a direction for his character. Either that, or I would love to see an actual scene where Akovian and Finn are on the mortal realm together in a fight. Like,
Oh damn!
that would be
Yeah.
such a cool, like, when if he got to like have another scene where he like just has to stand his ground, but Finner is like literally got his back. Like, that would be super cool. But I would love to see like him as a character that ascends into one of these open pantheons. Um, I don't think that Mybi is going to be a destriant for Finneray. I think she's going to join the House of Chains.
Oh
I think that's
no,
I think that's
yeah,
why the wolves are responding to her in the way that they are.
I could see it, and she is
Mm,
bitter. It makes
yeah,
sense. It definitely
yeah.
makes sense.
Because that aging process
No,
is kind of like the crippling, right? That's what he goes after. He
yeah,
preys on it, and so and I think
that's
they
a good call.
I think I think they sense that,
I think you're
or at
right.
least there's some kind of response there. So yeah, I'm worried that that's the way it's going.
Yeah,
Um, and but yeah, but ultimately I think that we don't see the House of Chains or the Crippled God resolved in this one, but I do think we have our confrontation with the Pinion Seer, and then we ultimately get that reveal of what happened there.
yep.
Um, so and I don't, and I could see this book ending with Tlani Mas being released, but I could also see it just ending with us getting the sort of indication that that's what's going to happen at some point in the near future. And then my last prediction is I think that I think at some point it's going to come to a head that Whiskey Jack and Dujek are still working for Lacine. I think Animator Rake knows it. I think Kaladin Brune knows it. I think they're willing to let this continue on, but I think it's gonna ultimately it's gonna
Like
come to
there'll
the
be a
forefront. Like,
conflict because of it.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and I think that is part of the reason why the like Kaladin Brune and Animator Rake are keeping a tight ship about where Moonspawn is going.
Mm.
But I think that ultimately that's gonna have to like come into the light, right? And like Animander and Kaladin have even brought that up of like they want to save Whiskey Jack and Dujek from like Empress Lacine.
Yeah,
So I think that comes up like that's going to come up in this last part.
there was an interesting conversation. I think it was between Animander Rake and Corlat or something about how like Malazan are bad, but Animander Rake is like, yeah, maybe, but like they would still want to run the city in peace after taking over. Yes, it's bad they want to take over, but at least they, there's still some good there, which is why we're willing to work with them. So I found that conversation interesting. Um, Another thing we didn't chat about, which was also very important, was that when they chained the cripple god, Fenner was a significant part of that. And that's what's worrying Animander and some of the others so much, is that they're going to have to do it again without Fenner. And that's what's so worrying, is like the powerhouse of the ones that chained him is gone or on Earth,
Yep.
scared. So not good, which I
Yeah.
found also really interesting, of just like who's going to step up.
Yeah. Well, this gives you the sense of like the pantheon is in turmoil, and
Mm.
also in some senses because there's this transitioning of a lot of a lot of the gods that we're sort of seeing are actually much newer in the grand scheme of things or inexperienced. Where it's like Drake is very new, Shadow Throne is very new. The two wolves have been separated for a long time and aren't to their fullest extent. The Bargos gods are very inexperienced, and so it's just sort of you sort of get this idea of like there's just sort of like transitioning inside the pantheon of like the old guard are wearing away.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Can I drop one more prediction? Not this
yeah, yeah,
book,
yeah, yeah.
but I think Whiskey Jack kills Lacine, because there's the realization in this part of the book that on the Siege of Pale, when the bridge burners are attacked, that Lacine was the point of that whole attack was to
Hmm.
kill and assassinate Whiskey Jack, because she
Yep.
found him too powerful and influential.
Hmm.
Um, Although, I feel like now that I've said that, I'm like, because of the way Steven Erickson writes, I'm so used to just like typical, like, yeah, and then he gets his revenge. Now I'm like, no. Whiskey's actually going to show up, be about to kill her, and then be like, I forgive you.
Yeah.
And they'll have a parade like at the end of the first
Yeah.
Star Wars prequel or
Mm.
whatever. Or maybe it's Revenge of the Sith,
Mm.
and that'll be it.
Yeah.
They'll all
Yeah.
hug and kiss, and
Do you think Column is the mortal sword for Shadow Throne?
I think if we're assuming that they are under different names, that like Yeah. I mean, I think that makes sense for that
Or
position. Because
because
like
like
right
because
now
this is the other thing I
he's
was thinking of is because they have like because Cotillion has a different name, but they don't have the standard names. Like he's like the rope, right? Like
so
Dancer's like the rope.
here's so in High House Shadow,
Hmm.
yeah, the king is Shadow Throne, the assassin is the rope. Yeah, but at some point, I think it was in this book, they said like the House of Shadow has a new assassin, and I think
Hmm.
we are just to assume, and it may even they may even tell us it was Callum.
They said it looks a lot like Callum. Like they're pretty like
Oh yeah,
we're meant
okay.
to understand this with Callum, but like Callum's mortal, and so I'm wondering if like like them having a new assassin. I wonder if he's like the equivalent of the mortal sword.
Well, here I'm looking at the other houses. It's interesting because like the High House Life, yeah, they do. They're all freaking named different. That's
Okay.
messed up. Yeah, so the High House Life has like a king, a queen, a champion, a priest, a herald, a soldier, a weaver, a mason, and a virgin. The High House Shadow only has king, queen, assassin, magi, hound. So all of them are different. It
Yeah.
seems like everyone has a king and a queen, and that is the only one that all of them have.
Yeah. But yeah, but yeah. So, but to me, it kind of seems like, in a sense, it's like sort of analogous, because then now we
Mm-hmm.
have like all the children, so that becomes like the militia, right? But it's like a militia of assassins, so to speak, rather than a standard army.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. It's crazy trying to. It's almost unfair. Where I'm like, come on, bro, like let, give us lend us a hand here.
Yeah.
Like just the fact that we're like, okay, there's like 8 positions in every house, and there's 15 houses, and then you named all of these positions differently from house to house. Like,
Mm,
I'm never gonna be able to keep track of that, which is fine. Again, I think it's one of those like it doesn't. You can just flip to the back and be like, oh yeah,
yeah.
they're this cool, and then you get those discoveries of like I didn't even think about it till you said it, but like it makes sense that like a destriant and a mortal sword is just another name for like maybe mortal sword is only for gods of war, but
Yep.
really that's the knight or whatever of these other
Yeah,
houses. Or
champion, assassin, yeah. Because
exactly,
they, 'cause
yeah.
they all have their own character, right? And
Mm.
so, yeah,
If you're thinking about it as far as like in the terms of like a deck of cards, like a tarot deck of cards, like
yeah,
it makes sense. There's the cups and there's the whatever, and I think they're all called something different, but they fill the same like position in the deck
yep.
within their hierarchy. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it is really cool to think about. But all right, a cool 90 minutes, and we wrapped it up. We did it.
There we go.
Crazy. I think this is our longest one yet. But there was
Yeah.
just, I feel like there were parts before this where it was okay skipping over, but I don't think there was anything that was okay to skip over here. um, yeah. So yeah, why don't you sign us off if anyone's still
Yes.
here,
Yeah. So,
other
well,
than
if you
you
are
and
still
me.
here, yeah. Well, for all those made it this far, again, thank you so much for checking out these videos. It has just really made the experience of going through Malazan so much better. The books are amazing, but just getting to sit down and talk about it with each other and read the comments, it's honestly been really, really great. So yeah, so we're going to go and wrap up this video, and then just keep an eye out for our next one. Should drop within roughly about 2 to 3 weeks. We'll conclude part 4, and then we'll set a date for doing the book review, in which we talk about not just our overall opinions of the book, but how it kind of fits in with the whole series as a whole. Right? We're not
Mhm.
going to be rehashing each part because we've already sort of done that. We're just going to go over the highlights.
10-hour
And
video.
I'm actually very excited for that, because I mentioned this before, but Memories of Ice for me was the first like this is the first book that's really shown the merits of Malazan as a series. Because like Gardens
Mm-hmm.
of the Moon and Death's Gates are amazing as books. But like even if you just read them and walked away, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But Memories of Ice is like really showing you the curtain, or really showing you behind the curtain of like what this series can be. And I'm loving it. It's
Yeah.
so awesome to see behind that curtain.
Yeah. I agree.
But yeah. So, but anyway, this is part 3, Capustan. We're excited to see you for the next one. But until then, this is Hobby Vomit, and I'm Ian, and this is
I'm Matt. And also, real quick, if you're still here, we are using a new software and resetting up audio and stuff like that. So if anything sounds, mostly sound, I think I can kind of see video. It seems to be okay. But if sound is not, let us know. And we are.
Have fun.
Goodbye. Thank you. Goodbye.